Tonight, we're going on a journey back in time, over 3,000 years ago, to one of the most amazing civilizations that ever existed on Earth, the ancient Maya. Before we start, I want to know, where are you right now? Are you lying in bed in New York? Sitting on a couch in London? Maybe you're halfway across the world in Tokyo or Sydney. Take a second and drop a comment below. Tell me what time it is, where you are, and where you're watching from. I love seeing how this channel connects people from every corner of the planet. And if you're new here, welcome. This channel is all about exploring history in a way that helps you relax, learn, and maybe drift off to sleep. If you enjoy this kind of content, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me keep making these videos for you. Get comfortable. Close your eyes if you want. And let me take you back to a time when giant pyramids rose above the jungle, when priests studied the stars, and when a powerful civilization ruled the rainforests of Central America. Part 1. The Beginning. The Maya World Awakens. Around 3,000 years ago, in the dense jungles of Central America, the lands we now call Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador, people were changing their way of life. For thousands of years they had been hunters and gatherers, moving through the forest following game and seasonal plants. But now, around 1000 BC, they were settling down. They were becoming farmers. This shift changed everything. When you plant crops and wait for harvest, you can't just move when resources run out. You have to make the land work. You have to organize. You have to plan. The first Maya farmers used slash-and-burn agriculture. They chopped down trees with stone axes, slow, difficult work. Then they burned the fallen wood. The fire cleared the ground and the ash enriched the soil. In these cleared spaces, they planted corn, beans, and squash. These three plants, called the Three Sisters, grew together and could feed a family. But farming the jungle was never easy. Heavy rains during the wet season could wash away soil and flood fields. Then for months during the dry season, almost no rain fell. The jungle constantly tried to reclaim cleared land. Vines grew fast, weeds sprouted everywhere. Insects attacked crops. Wild animals ate the plants. Farming required constant work. Despite these challenges, farming succeeded. And when farming succeeds, populations grow. Farming families could have more children than wandering families. More children meant more workers to clear more land and grow more food. The population increased. Villages formed, at first just 10 or 15 families living together. Their homes were simple: wooden poles for frames, mud walls, thatched roofs of palm leaves. These structures lasted 20 or 30 years before needing replacement, but they provided shelter. Villages offered advantages. If one family's crop failed, others could help. If danger came, a jaguar or hostile people, the village could defend itself together. People could specialize. One person made pottery, another hunted skillfully, another knew medicinal plants. These skills could be shared and traded. With larger villages came the need for leadership. Someone had to settle disputes over land. Someone had to organize communal ceremonies and defense. Leaders emerged in different ways. Some were the strongest warriors, some the smartest problem solvers, some came from established families, and some claimed special connections to the spirit world. These spiritual leaders, shamans and early priests, became increasingly important. They paid attention to patterns in nature. They noticed the sun rose at different points on the horizon throughout the year. They tracked the moon's 29-day cycle from crescent to full and back. They observed that certain stars appeared at certain times of year, signaling when to plant. This knowledge was both practical and spiritual. Understanding the sky meant understanding the will of the gods. By around 2000 BC, some villages were becoming small towns, and people began building with stone. They gathered limestone rocks, abundant in the Maya lowlands just beneath the soil, and piled them up to create raised platforms 3 or 4 feet high. Important buildings went on top, a chief's house or ceremonial structures. These platforms elevated important buildings, protected them from flooding, and required coordinated labor to construct. These platforms were the ancestors of the Great Pyramids. As generations added to them, they became true pyramids. By 1000 BC, some sites had pyramids 10 or 15 feet tall. By 500 BC, some reached 30 or 40 feet. The Maya were learning, experimenting, improving their construction techniques. One of the earliest great Maya cities was Nakbe in northern Guatemala. By 400 BC, Nakbe had massive pyramids over 100 feet tall. These were sophisticated structures with multiple levels, steep stairs leading to temples on top, and surfaces covered with white plaster. Building these required quarrying limestone with stone tools and wooden wedges, shaping the blocks, and transporting them without wheels or draft animals, only human muscle, log rollers, and ropes. It required planning the structure's dimensions and angles. It required organizing hundreds of workers and feeding them while they built instead of farmed. This level of organization required more than a village. It required a complex society with rulers who could command labor, administrators who could organize projects, and an economic system producing enough surplus food to feed non-farming workers. Maya civilization had truly begun. By this time, priests were developing something revolutionary: writing. The earliest Maya writing appears around 300 BC, carved on stone and painted on pottery. It used glyphs, small pictures or symbols. Some represented whole words, others represented sounds that could be combined to spell any word. It was real writing, capable of recording the Maya language and preserving information beyond human memory. Writing served practical purposes, recording tribute, marking ownership, preserving agreements. But it also served propaganda. A king who commissioned monuments with his name and achievements carved in glyphs would be remembered beyond his lifetime. Writing enabled the recording of the calendar. The Maya were obsessed with time. By the late pre-classic period, the centuries around the time of Christ, they had developed multiple calendar systems. The Tzolk'in was a 260-day ritual calendar used for religious purposes. Each day had a number from 1 to 13 and one of 20-day names. The combination repeated every 260 days. The Hab was a 365-day solar calendar tracking the seasons. It had 18 months of 20 days each, plus 5 unlucky days at year's end. These calendars ran simultaneously. Every day had both a Tzolk'in date and a Hab date. The same combination wouldn't repeat for 52 years, a full lifetime for many Maya. The Maya also developed the long count, a system counting days from a fixed mythological starting point. This allowed them to record any date unambiguously and track history across centuries. These calculations required mathematics. The Maya made a crucial discovery: zero. Most ancient civilizations didn't have zero, not the Romans, not the Greeks. But the Maya figured it out independently. They understood zero not just as absence but as a number itself, a placeholder making complex mathematics possible. With zero and their base 20 number system, the Maya could write any number. They could perform complex calculations. They could predict eclipses, track planetary movements, and calculate the year's length with impressive accuracy. This intellectual achievement happened in the pre-classic period, before most great cities were built. The foundation was being laid: writing, mathematics, calendar systems, architectural knowledge, political structures, religious beliefs. Different cities developed across the Maya region. In the Guatemalan lowlands, cities like Nakbe and El Mirador built enormous pyramids. In the highlands, cities adapted architectural styles to mountainous terrain. Along the coasts, cities developed strong trade networks. These cities traded extensively: obsidian from highlands, salt from coasts, jade from river valleys, cacao from tropical lowlands, colorful feathers from various regions. Trade networks crisscrossed the Maya world, spreading goods, artistic styles, religious concepts, and technological innovations. The Maya language was diversifying into regional dialects that would become separate languages, but cultural unity remained. The Maya shared beliefs about gods, cosmic structure, calendar importance, and blood sacrifice. By 250 AD, the Maya were entering their golden age, the classic period. The centuries from 250 to 900 AD would see Maya civilization's greatest achievements. Population would peak. Cities would become metropolises with tens of thousands of residents. Pyramids would reach maximum heights. Art would achieve extraordinary beauty. Writing would fully develop. Astronomical knowledge would reach its zenith. But all this rested on the foundation laid during earlier centuries. Farmers who cleared the first fields, builders who constructed the first platforms, priests who watched the stars and found patterns, leaders who organized communities into cities, scribes who painted the first glyphs, mathematicians who discovered zero. These anonymous people created the foundation of one of history's greatest civilizations. They transformed the jungle into farmland. They turned scattered families into communities. They turned nature observation into science and religion. As the classic period began, the Maya world was poised for greatness. Cities rose from the jungle, pyramids reached toward the sky, population grew, trade flourished, the calendar turned, the gods received increasingly elaborate ceremonies. From humble beginnings, small villages, simple farms, wooden houses, the Maya had built something magnificent. Villages had become cities, tribes had become a complex civilization with art, science, religion, government, writing, architecture, and mathematics. The foundation was complete. The Maya civilization was fully formed. Now came the flowering, the golden age, when Maya civilization would achieve its greatest heights and take its place among the great civilizations of human history. Part 2. Daily Life. Life in a Maya City. Let's step into a Maya city now, during the classic period, somewhere around 600 AD. The sun is just starting to rise over the jungle. The sky is turning from deep purple to pink to orange. Birds are waking up, calling to each other. Howler monkeys roar in the distance. The city is coming alive. In a small house near the edge of the city, a woman named Khan wakes up. Her name means precious yellow, yellow like ripe corn. She's maybe 30 years old, which makes her middle-aged in Maya times. Life is hard, and not everyone lives to be old. She stretches and sits up on her sleeping mat. Her husband, Kinich, is already awake, preparing to go to the fields. Their 3 children are still sleeping, 2 boys and a girl, ranging from 5 to 12 years old. The house is modest but comfortable. One large room, maybe 15 feet across. The walls are made of limestone blocks. This family is doing better than the poorest families, who still have mud walls. The floor is packed earth, swept clean every day. The roof is thatch, made from palm leaves, angled steeply so rain runs off quickly. There are no windows, just openings in the walls to let in light and air. No door either, just a cloth hanging across the entrance for privacy. Inside, their possessions are few but important. Sleeping mats rolled up against the wall. Clay pots of different sizes, some for water, some for storing corn and beans, some for cooking. A metate and mano for grinding corn. These stones are worn smooth from years of use. Woven baskets hanging from the rafters. A small altar in one corner with a clay figure of the corn god and some incense burners. This is where the family makes offerings, where they pray for good harvests and healthy children. Khan rises and goes outside. There's a small cooking area just outside the door, protected by an overhang of the roof. 3 stones arranged in a triangle form the hearth. The fire from last night is still glowing with embers. She adds some kindling, dry twigs and leaves, and blows gently until flames appear. Then she adds larger pieces of wood. The fire is the heart of the home. It provides light, warmth on cool nights, and most importantly, it cooks the food. Some families keep their fire burning continuously for years, never letting it go completely out. Her first task every morning is the same, making tortillas. She takes dried corn kernels from a large clay storage jar. These kernels are hard as stones. You can't just grind them up. First, they need to be prepared. Last night, she boiled them with lime, powdered limestone mixed with water. This process is called nixtamalization, though of course the Maya didn't call it that. What it does is soften the corn and make it more nutritious. It releases nutrients that would otherwise be locked away inside the kernel. Without this process, people who eat mostly corn can get sick from malnutrition, but the Maya figured this out thousands of years ago. The boiled corn has been soaking overnight. Now Ixcan drains off the water and rinses the corn. The outer skins of the kernels slip off easily. What's left is soft, swollen kernels ready to be ground. She kneels in front of her metate, the grinding stone. It's angled slightly, propped up on one end. She places a handful of corn on it and takes her mano, the stone rolling pin. Back and forth, she grinds the corn. It's hard work. Her shoulders and arms are strong from doing this every single morning for years. The corn gradually breaks down, first into rough pieces, then into finer meal, then into smooth dough. She adds a little water as she grinds, getting the consistency just right. Too dry and the tortillas will crack. Too wet and they'll be soggy. After about 20 minutes of grinding, she has enough dough for the morning meal. Now comes the part she's been doing since she was a little girl, learning from her mother. She takes a ball of dough about the size of a lime. She pats it between her hands, turning it as she pats, pressing it flatter and flatter. Pat, turn, turn. It takes practice to get it thin and round. When she started learning at age 6 or 7, her tortillas were thick and uneven. Now, her hands move without thinking. The dough becomes a perfect circle, thin enough to be flexible but thick enough not to tear. She places it on the comal, a flat clay griddle heated over the fire. It sizzles slightly. After about a minute, she flips it with her fingers, moving quickly so she doesn't burn herself. Another minute on the other side. The tortilla puffs up slightly, steam escaping. It's done. She puts it in a gourd bowl covered with a cloth to keep warm and starts on the next one. By the time the children wake up, she has a stack of fresh tortillas. The smell has filled the house, that warm, comforting smell of corn cooking. Her husband comes back from checking their small garden plot behind the house. He's picked some tomatoes and a few chili peppers. Ixcan has black beans that she cooked yesterday, simmering them for hours until they were soft. She reheats them over the fire. The family sits together on the floor to eat. There's no table, no chairs. They sit cross-legged or squat comfortably. Each person takes a tortilla, tears off a piece, and uses it to scoop up beans. The children add some tomato and pepper. Her husband has a small bowl of pumpkin seeds, toasted and salted, a special treat. They eat with their hands, the tortilla serving as both food and utensil. They don't talk much during the meal. Eating is serious business, not to be wasted. The corn they're eating is sacred. It's not just food, it's life itself. After eating, Ixcan's husband presses his fingers to the earth, then to his lips, a small gesture of thanks to the earth goddess for providing. What did the Maya eat beyond corn and beans? Let me paint you a fuller picture of their diet, because it was more varied than you might think. Corn was the foundation of everything. The Maya ate it at every meal, every single day. They made tortillas, yes, but also tamales, corn dough wrapped in corn husks or banana leaves and steamed. They made atole, a thin corn porridge that was a common breakfast drink. They made many different dishes with corn as the base. Beans came second in importance, black beans mostly, though sometimes red beans. Rich in protein, they complemented the corn perfectly. Together, corn and beans provide complete protein, all the amino acids a human body needs. The Maya didn't know the science, but they knew these foods together kept them strong. Squash and pumpkins added variety. They ate the flesh roasted or boiled. They toasted the seeds. They even ate the flowers and the young leaves. Nothing was wasted. Chili peppers were essential, not just for flavor, though the Maya loved spicy food. Peppers also helped preserve food and had nutritional value. There were many varieties, some small and explosively hot, some larger and milder. People grew them in their gardens, and every family had their favorites. Tomatoes, though smaller and more tart than modern tomatoes. Avocados, rich and filling. Jicama, a crunchy root vegetable eaten raw. Sweet potatoes. Manioc, also called yucca, a starchy root that could be boiled or made into flour. From the forest they gathered wild foods. Raman nuts from the breadnut tree. These could be ground into flour during times when corn was scarce. Cacao, of course, though this was more of a drink than a food. Various fruits, papaya, guava, custard apple, sapote with its sweet orange flesh, palm hearts, edible flowers. They ate meat, but not as much as we do today. Hunting provided venison from white-tailed deer, wild peccaries, which are like wild pigs, rabbits and large rodents called agoutis, armadillos, monkeys, though not all Maya groups ate monkey meat, iguanas and other large lizards, various birds, wild turkeys, ducks, quail, doves, parrots and macaws, though these were more often kept as pets than eaten. They raised turkeys in pens. The birds were important for ceremonies and special occasions. They also kept those hairless dogs I mentioned, bred specifically for eating. I know that sounds strange to us, but to the Maya, these dogs were livestock, not pets. Though they did also keep other dogs as companions. If the family lived near the coast or a river, fish was part of the diet. Freshwater fish from lakes and rivers, ocean fish and shellfish from the coast, shrimp, crabs, oysters, clams. In coastal areas, dried and salted fish was a major trade item, carried inland to feed people who never saw the ocean. And then there was chocolate. Cacao was so valuable that the beans were used as currency. You could buy things with cacao beans. A rabbit might cost 10 beans. A slave might cost 100 beans. But cacao was also drunk, especially by the wealthy and during ceremonies. Making chocolate was a process. The cacao beans were fermented, dried, roasted, and then ground on a metate, just like corn. The ground cacao was mixed with water and spices, chili peppers, vanilla, flowers, sometimes honey. The mixture was poured back and forth between two containers from a height, creating foam. The foam was the best part, rich and thick. Important people would drink chocolate from special painted cups, sometimes at every meal. Common people might taste it only a few times a year, at weddings or festivals. Let me take you through a typical day for this family to show you how life flowed. After breakfast, Kinich, the father, heads to the fields. He's a farmer, like most Maya men. His milpa, his cornfield, is about a 30-minute walk from the city. The field is in the forest, a cleared area that he and his family have worked for years. He carries his tools, a digging stick, a stone axe, a bag of seeds for replanting where needed. The work is constant. Weeds grow fast in the tropical climate. He spends hours walking between the rows, using his digging stick to lever out unwanted plants. He checks the corn stalks for signs of damage from insects or disease. He looks at the beans climbing up the corn stalks, making sure they're healthy. He inspects the squash plants spreading across the ground. It's hot work. The sun climbs higher, and the temperature rises. The air becomes thick and humid. Sweat drips down his face and back. But Kinich is used to it. He's been doing this since he was a boy, learning from his father. He knows to work steadily but not rush. He knows to drink water from the gourd he brought with him. He knows to rest in the shade during the hottest part of the afternoon. Around midday, Ixcan prepares a simple meal. More tortillas, some leftover beans, sliced tomatoes with salt. She packs some in a cloth and sends her daughter to take it to her father in the fields. The girl makes the walk she's made dozens of times before. She knows the path, knows which trees mark the way. She finds her father, and they sit together in the shade to eat. He asks about her weaving, and she tells him it's getting easier. These small moments of connection matter in Maya family life. The afternoon continues with more work. Ixcan tends their small garden behind the house. They grow extra vegetables here, and herbs for cooking and medicine. She pulls weeds, waters plants using water from their storage jar, picks ripe vegetables. She hangs laundry to dry, the clothes she washed this morning at the cenote. She also prepares nixtamal for tomorrow, more corn soaking in lime water, so it will be ready to grind in the morning. She checks their food stores, making mental notes of what they have and what they need. Maybe they're running low on salt. She'll need to trade for some at the next market day. Maybe they need more peppers. She manages the household economy, making sure they have what they need. Late afternoon, the children drift back home. The youngest has been playing with neighbor children. They were throwing a rubber ball back and forth, practicing for when they're old enough to play the real ball game. The ball is made from natural rubber from rubber trees, boiled down and formed into a heavy, bouncing ball. Even this small practice ball weighs several pounds. The children laugh and shout as they play, developing strength and coordination. As evening approaches, Kinich returns from the fields. He's tired but satisfied. The corn is growing well. Unless something goes wrong, a drought, too much rain, a plague of insects, they should have a good harvest. He washes the dirt off his hands and feet at the water jar. He greets his wife, his children. He sits down to rest. Ixcan prepares the evening meal, the main meal of the day. Tonight, she's making tamales. She's been preparing for this all afternoon. She made the corn dough, mixed it with some lard from a turkey they butchered last month. She prepared a filling, black beans mashed with peppers and tomatoes. She wrapped spoonfuls of dough around the filling, then wrapped each tamale in a corn husk, tying it closed with a strip of husk. Now she arranges the tamales in a clay pot with water in the bottom. She covers the pot and sets it over the fire. As the water boils, steam rises and cooks the tamales. The family waits, and the smell is wonderful, corn and beans and spices all mixing together. While waiting, the family sits together. This is when stories are told. Kinich might tell his sons about something that happened in the fields. Maybe he saw a fox or found some interesting tracks. Ixcan might share gossip from the other women at the cenote. Someone's daughter is getting married. Someone else had a new baby. Or maybe the grandmother visits. She lives nearby with another son's family. She's old now, her hair gray, her hands gnarled with age. But her mind is sharp, and she remembers everything. She tells the children stories about when she was young, about the old king who died when she was a girl, about the great ceremony she saw when she was first married. She tells the old myths, about the hero twins, about how the animals got their characteristics, about the gods and their endless struggles to maintain the world. The children listen, wide-eyed. These stories are their education, their connection to their culture. They learn what it means to be Maya through these tales. They learn values, bravery, cleverness, respect for the gods, the importance of duty. They learn their place in the cosmos. The tamales are ready. Ixcan carefully lifts them out of the pot with a wooden tool. They're hot, steaming. She unwraps one to check. Perfect. The dough is cooked through, slightly translucent, holding together beautifully. She serves them to her family. They eat together as darkness falls. There's no electricity, no artificial light except the fire. As night comes, the world gets dark quickly in the tropics. The fire provides flickering light, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Outside, night sounds begin. Insects chirping, frogs calling, the occasional cry of a night bird. After eating, there's not much to do. No television, no phones, no books for most people. The family might sit by the fire a little longer, talking quietly. The children might play a simple game, something with pebbles and a board scratched in the dirt. But mostly, when darkness comes, people sleep. They're tired from the day's work. They'll sleep deeply and wake with the sun to do it all again. But let me tell you about special days, because life wasn't all work. Every few days, maybe every 5 days, or every 20 days depending on the city, there was a market day. This was exciting. This was when the city really came alive. People came from all over, from the city itself, from surrounding villages, from other cities sometimes. The main plaza would fill with people setting up their goods. Women spread woven mats on the ground and arranged their pottery. Men displayed obsidian tools and blades. Farmers brought baskets of produce. Hunters had meat. fresh if killed that morning, or dried if brought from farther away. Families like Kinich and Ixcan would bring things to trade. Maybe Ixcan wove an extra huipil to sell. Maybe Kinich had surplus corn from last harvest. They would walk to the market early, hoping for good spots to set up. The market was overwhelming to the senses. So many people talking, laughing, arguing about prices, smells of different foods mixing together, roasting meat, fresh peppers, ripe fruit, colors everywhere, dyed cloth in red, blue, yellow, jade jewelry glinting green in the sun, painted pottery with elaborate designs, feathers from tropical birds, bright red macaw feathers, iridescent green quetzal feathers, worth more than their weight in jade. Children loved market day. They'd run between the stalls, looking at everything. Maybe their parents would buy them a treat, some fruit they didn't grow at home, or a small toy. The boy might get a little clay whistle shaped like a bird. The girl might get a new ribbon for her hair. The Maya didn't use metal coins for money. Instead, they traded goods directly, barter, or they used cacao beans as a kind of currency. Everything had a value measured in cacao beans. A small rabbit might be worth 10 beans. A stone blade, 20 beans. A length of nice cloth, 50 beans. Larger trades, like a canoe or a jade necklace, might be worth hundreds of beans. People haggled, negotiating prices. This pottery is worth 30 beans. No, it has a crack, 20 beans at most. What crack? This is perfect, 25 beans, final offer. Done. They'd count out the beans carefully, checking each one to make sure it was real and not a fake. Sometimes people would empty out a cacao bean and fill the shell with dirt, trying to cheat. The market was also where news spread. Traders who'd come from other cities brought information. A new king was crowned in the city of Tikal. There was a drought in the northern lowlands. A war party from Calakmul had raided a smaller city. This city was building a new pyramid, even taller than the last. All this information circulated, passed from person to person. And then there were the ball games. The Maya played a game with a rubber ball that was part sport, part ritual, part entertainment. Every major city had at least one ball court, a long, narrow playing field with sloped walls on either side. The game was played by two teams, usually 3 to 5 players per side. They had to keep a heavy rubber ball in the air using only their hips, thighs, and upper arms. No hands, no feet. The ball could weigh 8 or 10 pounds. Getting hit by it hurt. Players wore thick protective padding on their waists and chest. The exact rules varied from city to city and changed over time, but generally you scored by hitting the ball against markers on the walls or getting it through a stone ring set high on the wall, though this was incredibly difficult and rare. Games could last hours, with players diving, spinning, using their bodies to keep the ball bouncing. People gathered to watch these games. The whole city might turn out for important matches. They'd sit on the slopes above the court, cheering for their favored team. There was betting. People wagered cacao beans, jewelry, even clothing on the outcome. But the ball game was more than just sport. It had deep religious meaning. The ball court represented the entrance to the underworld. The ball represented the sun moving across the sky, or the severed head of an underworld god, depending on which myth you knew. Some games, especially important ritual ones, ended with human sacrifice. The losing team, or sometimes the winning team, in the ultimate honor, might be sacrificed to the gods. Children played simplified versions of the game. They'd draw lines in the dirt to mark boundaries and use a smaller, lighter ball. They'd play for hours, developing the skills they'd need if they ever played officially. The game taught coordination, teamwork, strategy. Boys dreamed of becoming champion ball players, famous throughout the Maya world. Girls had their own games and activities. They'd play with clay dolls, dressing them in scraps of cloth. They'd practice weaving on small looms, making doll clothes and small pieces of cloth. They'd help their mothers, gradually taking on more responsibility. By the time a girl was 12 or 13, she was doing much of the household work herself, preparing to manage her own home when she married. Marriages were usually arranged by families, often when the children were still young. Parents would discuss it, maybe agree that their son and daughter would marry when they came of age. The girl might be 13 or 14, the boy a few years older. There would be a ceremony, with gifts exchanged between families. The boy's family might give the girl's family cacao, cloth, or jewelry. The girl would bring to the marriage her weaving skills and whatever household goods her family could provide. The newlyweds might live with one family or the other for a time, or they might build their own small house nearby. They'd start their life together, the rhythms of work and seasons continuing. Soon there would be children, and the cycle would continue, generation after generation. This was Maya daily life. Not glamorous, not easy, but rich with meaning. Every action connected to something larger, to family, to community, to the gods, to the cosmos itself. The corn they ate was the same corn the gods used to create humans. The ball games they played mirrored divine struggles in the heavens and the underworld. The cloth they wove, the pots they made, the homes they built, all of it was part of a web of relationships and meanings that made sense of the world. As night falls in our Maya city, families settle into sleep. Tomorrow will bring the same work, grinding corn, tending fields, weaving cloth, teaching children. But there's contentment in this rhythm, in knowing your place and playing your part. The stars wheel overhead, following the paths the gods set for them. The city sleeps, but the cosmos continues its eternal dance, and the Maya people are part of it all. Part 3. Amazing Buildings, Mountains Made by Human Hands. Let's walk through a great Maya city at the height of the Classic period. The year is around 700 AD. We're in Tikal, one of the most powerful cities in the Maya world, in what's now northern Guatemala. It's early morning. The sun is rising and mist clings to the pyramid tops. From the Great Plaza, a huge open space paved with white limestone plaster, we can see several massive pyramid structures rising above the jungle canopy. The tallest, Temple 4, rises over 200 feet into the air, as tall as a 20-story modern building. Stand here and look up. The pyramid rises in steep steps, each level smaller than the one below. 9 levels, 9 terraces ascending toward the sky. The number 9 was sacred to the Maya. It represented the 9 levels of the underworld. By building 9 levels, the pyramid connected the earthly realm to the realm of death and rebirth. The limestone blocks are covered with white stucco plaster, painted in places with bright colors, red, blue, green, yellow. In the morning sun, the whole structure glows. Birds circle the top, riding air currents. At the very top sits the temple, a smaller building, elaborately decorated. The roof has a roof comb, a tall thin wall rising even higher, carved with images of gods and kings. This roof comb serves no practical purpose, it's pure display, making the temple more impressive, more visible from miles away through the jungle. Let me tell you how this pyramid was built. It started decades ago, maybe a century ago. A king decided he wanted a pyramid here, a monument connecting his city to the gods and showing everyone his power. He called together advisors, architects, and priests. They planned, calculated, and performed ceremonies asking the gods for approval. First, workers cleared the jungle and leveled the ground. They laid down a foundation of rubble and dirt, tamping it hard to make it solid. Then came the limestone. In the Yucatan lowlands, limestone was everywhere, just beneath the thin jungle soil. It was relatively soft when first quarried, making it easier to cut and shape. As it dried and aged, it hardened. Workers went to quarries miles from the city. Using stone hammers and wooden wedges, they broke off chunks of limestone, looking for natural cracks in the rock. They'd drive wooden wedges into cracks, pour water on them, and as the wood expanded, it would force the crack wider until a chunk broke free. Then they shaped these chunks into blocks using stone tools, hammers made from harder stone than limestone. They'd chip away, creating flat surfaces and right angles. Not every block had to be perfect. Interior blocks could be rougher. But facing stones, the ones that would show, needed careful shaping. A single block might weigh several hundred pounds. some half a ton or more. The Maya had no metal tools, no wheeled vehicles, no horses or oxen, only human power. Moving these blocks required wooden rollers, logs placed beneath the stones. Teams of men, sometimes dozens for heavy blocks, would pull using ropes made from plant fibers. As the block rolled forward over the logs, workers would pick up logs from behind and carry them to the front, creating continuous rolling path. For steep areas, they built ramps of earth and rubble, gradually sloping up. As the pyramid grew taller, the ramp grew longer and higher, spiraling around the pyramid or leading straight up one face. Imagine you're a worker named Zul, a farmer working on the pyramid during dry season when there's less farm work. This is your duty to your king and city. You'll work here for several months, and your family will receive extra food rations from royal storehouses. You wake before dawn, eat a quick breakfast, and walk to the construction site with hundreds of other workers. Your crew of 20 men is assigned to move a 400-pound limestone block from a staging area to the pyramid face. Ropes are tied around it. Your crew lines up, 10 men on each side. "Pull!" shouts the crew leader. You all pull together, leaning back. The block shifts, slides forward on its rollers. "Rest!" Everyone relaxes. "Pull!" Again you strain. The block moves another few feet. It takes an hour to move the block to the pyramid base. Now comes the harder part, getting it up the ramp to the 5th terrace, about 60 feet up. The ramp switchbacks as it rises, wide enough for crews to pass each other. The incline isn't too steep, maybe 1 foot of rise for every 10 feet forward, but pulling this heavy block uphill is brutal. Every few yards, you stop to rest. Your muscles burn, sweat pours off you, but you keep going. This pyramid will stand for centuries. Your great-great-grandchildren will see it and know you helped build it. Finally, you reach the 5th terrace. Masons direct where your block should go. These skilled craftsmen have trained for years. They examine the block, checking its fit against blocks already placed. Using a wooden straight edge and experienced eye, they ensure everything is level, angles are right. If a block doesn't fit perfectly, apprentice masons chip away at it, adjusting its shape. Once the mason approves the position, workers mix mortar, limestone plaster made from burning limestone in a kiln, then mixing the powder with water. They spread a thin layer on top of the previous stones. Using wooden levers, they carefully lower your block into place. The master mason checks again. Perfect. Your crew heads back down for another block. You'll make this trip dozens of times today, placing perhaps 10 blocks, 10 more stones in a pyramid that will contain millions. It's hard to imagine the whole when you're working on such a small part, but that's how all great things are built. One piece at a time, one day at a time, one generation after another. The pyramid isn't solid stone throughout. That would require too much cut stone and labor. Instead, the Maya built outer walls of carefully cut and fitted limestone blocks forming a shell. Then they filled the interior with rubble, broken limestone chunks, dirt, smaller stones. They'd pour this in, pack it down, then build the next layer of outer walls and continue upward. This technique meant most of the pyramid's mass was fill material, much faster to place than cut blocks. Only visible surfaces needed careful construction. The fill had to be well packed, or the structure could collapse. Maya engineers angled interior walls slightly inward for stability, and sometimes built interior chambers with corbelled arches. Arches made by stacking stones, so each layer projects slightly inward until the two sides meet at the top. Some pyramids had burial chambers deep inside. When a great king died, he might be entombed within the pyramid with jade jewelry, painted pottery, and offerings of food and drink for his afterlife journey. The chamber would be sealed, and construction would continue over it, building higher, entombing the king in the pyramid's heart forever. At Palenque, archaeologists discovered King Kainich Janab Pakal's tomb in the 1950s, buried in 683 AD. His body was adorned with jade, a jade mask covering his face, jade rings on his fingers, jade beads in his mouth. He held jade objects in his hands. The burial chamber was painted with murals showing his journey to the afterlife. A carved stone slab weighing 5 tons covered his sarcophagus, showing Pakal falling into the jaws of the underworld to be reborn as a god. This tomb lay hidden for nearly 1,300 years. After months or years, when the main pyramid structure was complete, finishing work transformed it from a pile of stone into art. Plasterers covered the rough limestone blocks with layers of stucco. They spread it smooth with wooden tools, adding 2 or 3 layers, each finer than the last, creating a surface as smooth as polished marble. When it dried, it was brilliant white, almost glowing in the tropical sun. Then came painters. The Maya loved color. Artists painted the stucco with bright colors from natural pigments, red from hematite, an iron-rich mineral, blue from mixing indigo with special clay, creating Maya blue so durable it's still bright on ruins today. Yellow from certain clays, black from charcoal, green from mixing yellow and blue, white from limestone itself. They painted geometric patterns along terrace edges and covered temples with images of gods, animals, and glyphs recording important dates and events. Some pyramids had huge stucco masks of gods built onto their faces, massive sculptures 30 or 40 feet tall, painted in bright colors, showing the rain god Chak or sun god Kinich Ajah. Imagine approaching the city and seeing these enormous god faces staring down. It must have been awe-inspiring and humbling. The stairway up the pyramid face received special attention. These stairs were steep, much steeper than modern building codes would allow. Some were so steep you'd need your hands to climb, pulling yourself up from step to step. This was intentional. The climb was supposed to be difficult, even dangerous, a sacred journey symbolizing the difficulty of reaching the divine realm. The stairs were wide enough for processions. During major ceremonies, priests would climb in elaborate costumes, jade jewelry, feathered headdresses, painted bodies, carrying offerings, burning incense, sacrificial victims, sacred objects. People would gather in the plaza below, thousands watching. Musicians would play drums, rattles, flutes. The sound would echo off pyramid faces, amplified by the architecture. At certain times of year, the sun created special effects. The Maya were master astronomers and architects who oriented buildings to align with celestial events. At spring and autumn equinoxes, the rising or setting sun might cast shadows, creating the illusion of a serpent crawling down the pyramid stairway. Or sunlight might shine through a temple doorway, illuminating a specific altar at a specific moment. These effects were carefully planned, calculated, built into the architecture, demonstrating that Maya kings had mastery over the cosmos itself. Now let's climb to the top and see the temple. The climb is exhausting, over 100 steps, each high and narrow. Your legs burn, your lungs heave. But finally, you reach the top, and the view is breathtaking. You can see the entire city spread below, the great plaza directly beneath, other pyramids rising from the jungle in every direction, the palace complex to one side. Beyond the city center, residential areas stretch away, thousands of small homes, cooking fires sending up thin columns of smoke, and beyond that, the jungle, green and dense, rolling away to the horizon. The temple itself is a small building, maybe only 1 or 2 rooms. The walls are thick stone covered with painted stucco. The doorways are narrow. The Maya used corbelled arches which can't span very wide. The roof is flat or nearly flat, topped with that dramatic roof comb. Inside it's dim and cool, a relief from the hot sun. The rooms are small, almost cramped, but elaborately decorated. Walls are painted with murals showing mythological scenes, historical events, divine beings. There might be a stone altar carved with glyphs and offerings left by previous visitors, jade beads, copal incense, ceramic censers shaped like gods. This is where the most sacred rituals took place, away from crowds below. Here priests performed divination, reading the future. Here kings drew their own blood, offering it to the gods in private ceremonies. Here the divine and human worlds came closest together. The air smells of incense, copal, a tree resin producing aromatic white smoke when burned. It's been burning here so long the smell has soaked into the stones. There's a feeling of presence here, of holiness. The Maya who visited believed the gods were close, that prayers offered here would be heard. Let's descend and explore the palace complex. While pyramids and temples were houses for the gods, palaces were houses for kings, though Maya kings were themselves considered semi-divine, intermediaries between human and divine realms. The palace complex sits on a lower platform, maybe 10 or 20 feet high, but covering several acres. On top are multiple buildings arranged around interior courtyards. Palace buildings are different from temples, longer, lower, with more rooms. Some have 2 or even 3 stories. Rooms are interconnected by doorways and corridors. Large formal rooms are audience halls, where the king received visitors, conducted business, held court. Smaller private rooms were living quarters for the king and family, storage rooms, workshops. Palace walls are thick stone, but inside they're decorated more elaborately than temples. Walls are covered with murals showing historical events, wars, ceremonies, divine visions. At Bonampak, murals show a battle scene so detailed you can see individual warriors, their expressions, weapons, captives. The colors are still bright after over 1,000 years. Some palace rooms have stone benches built into walls, carved with glyphs and images. The king would sit on such a bench, his back against the wall where carved images of ancestors watched over him. Petitioners would kneel before him on the floor. No one was allowed to stand taller than the king in his presence. Palace courtyards are open to the sky, semi-public spaces where larger gatherings might occur. Stone stelae here, upright monuments carved with the king's portrait and glyphs recording his achievements, were propaganda, declarations of power meant to impress visitors and intimidate enemies. The king's personal quarters were comfortable by Maya standards, though simple by modern expectations. No running water, electricity, or climate control. But the king had luxuries ordinary people didn't. Sleeping mats covered with jaguar pelts, finest cloth elaborately woven with complex patterns and expensive dyes, jade jewelry worth more than most people would see in a lifetime, chocolate at every meal, servants attending every need. The king's wives had their own quarters. The principal wife, the queen, had significant status and power. She might conduct her own ceremonies, make her own offerings. In some cases, if the king died and his heir was too young, the queen might rule as regent. Some queens were powerful political figures in their own right. The palace housed workshops where craftsmen created luxury goods. In one room, jade carvers work. Jade is incredibly hard. You can't carve it with normal stone tools. Instead, they use drilling and sawing with string or reed, using water and sand as abrasive. It's slow, painstaking work. A single jade carving might take months. But the results are exquisite. In another workshop, scribes work. These are among the most educated people in Maya society. They've spent years learning to read and write hundreds of Maya glyphs. They know calendar systems inside and out. They record important events on paper made from tree bark, creating codices, accordion-folded books. They paint pottery with glyphs and images. They carve stone monuments. Scribes are part priest, part artist, part historian. In another workshop, weavers create cloth for the royal family. The finest cotton, woven on backstrap looms with infinitely more skill than common cloth. They create cloth so fine you can almost see through it. They weave patterns of incredible complexity, requiring tracking hundreds of individual threads. They use expensive dyes: cochineal red, indigo blue, purple from sea snails. A single royal garment might be worth a fortune. Storage rooms are filled with tribute from subject cities and villages. Huge clay jars full of dried corn, beans, cacao. Stacks of folded cloth. Bags of obsidian blades, cakes of salt, bundles of feathers, containers of precious liquids. All this represents the kingdom's wealth, resources the king can draw on for building projects, wars, ceremonies. Ball courts are associated with many palace complexes. These courts are eye-shaped, a long, narrow playing field with sloped walls on either side and end zones at each end. The playing field might be 40 or 50 yards long, maybe 20 feet wide. The walls are 15 or 20 feet high, perfectly smooth, angled at about 30 degrees. Ball courts are marvels of acoustic engineering. Stand at one end and speak normally, and someone 50 yards away can hear you clearly. The walls amplify and focus sound. During games, every grunt, every impact of the ball, every shout echoes and reverberates. High on the walls, stone rings project outward with holes through the center, maybe 2 feet in diameter. Getting the heavy rubber ball through one of these rings was incredibly difficult. Games might go on for hours without anyone scoring this way, but if someone did manage it, the game ended instantly. Ultimate victory. Now let's talk about specific pyramids that show the heights of Maya achievement. At Tikal, Temple 4 stands 212 feet tall, built around 741 AD under King Yikan Chan Kawil. From the top on a clear day, you could see pyramids of other cities dozens of miles away. This pyramid alone contains an estimated 190,000 cubic yards of fill and facing stone. At Calakmul, Structure 2 is one of the largest Maya pyramids by volume, about 180 feet tall but massive at the base, covering more ground. This pyramid was built and rebuilt over centuries. Archaeologists found at least 7 different construction phases. The Maya would build a pyramid, use it for decades or centuries, then build a larger pyramid right over it. The earlier pyramid would be completely encased in the new construction, preserved inside like a fossil. Why? Partly to make a grander statement with each new king, but also for religious reasons. The old pyramid was sacred, inhabited by spirits of ancestors and gods. You couldn't tear it down. Instead, you honored it by incorporating it into the new pyramid, creating layers of sacredness. At Chichen Itza, the pyramid of Kukulkan is a calendar in stone. It has 4 sides, each with 91 steps. 4 times 91 is 364. Add the platform at the top and you get 365, the days in the solar year. Each side has 52 panels on the walls. 52 is the number of years in the calendar round. At the equinoxes, the setting sun creates a shadow pattern that looks like a serpent descending the stairway. 7 triangles of light leading down to a serpent head carved at the bottom. At Palenque, the architecture is more elegant and delicate-looking than other cities. The Temple of the Inscriptions contains the longest Maya text found anywhere, 617 glyphs, carved into 3 stone panels, telling the history of Palenque's kings, going back generations. Beneath this temple, deep inside, is King Pakal's tomb. A stairway leads down through the pyramid-filled to the hidden chamber. No one but the builders knew it was there until modern archaeologists discovered it. The palace at Palenque has a unique 4-story tower rising above the palace roofs, giving a view of the surrounding area. Was it an astronomical observatory? A watchtower? A symbol of the king reaching toward the heavens? Probably all of these. The Maya didn't separate functions the way we do. At Copan, pyramids are decorated with elaborate stone sculptures. The hieroglyphic stairway has over 2,200 glyphs carved into the risers, the longest Maya text in stone. Climbing this stairway, you're literally walking through history. The sculptures at Copan are incredibly detailed, 3-dimensional figures of kings and gods emerging from the stone, so realistic you feel they might step free. How long did it take to build these pyramids? A major pyramid might take 20 to 40 years with steady work and large crews during dry seasons. Some took longer, built in stages over multiple generations. Thousands of people were involved. For a large pyramid, you might need 500 to 1,000 workers at the construction site at any given time during building season. Over decades, thousands more contributed, quarrying stone, making plaster, transporting materials, providing food for workers. The organization required was immense. Someone planned where stones would come from. Someone scheduled work crews. Someone distributed food rations. Someone designed the structure and ensured it was built according to plan. Someone supervised religious ceremonies accompanying every construction phase. This organizational capability, mobilizing and coordinating thousands of people toward a common goal, was one of the Maya's greatest achievements, as impressive as the pyramids themselves. And remember, all of this was done without metal tools. Stone hammers, wooden levers, plant fiber ropes, human muscle. No cranes, no pulleys, no complex machines. Just simple tools, human ingenuity, careful planning, and enormous dedication. When a pyramid was completed, there would be a dedication ceremony. The king, dressed in his finest regalia, would climb the stairway followed by priests, nobles, and captives. The entire city would gather in the plaza below, thousands watching. At the top, the king would perform rituals, burning incense, offering blood, perhaps sacrificing captives. Drums would thunder, conch shell trumpets would sound. The ceremony would last hours, maybe all day. And when it was done, the pyramid was alive, no longer just stone and plaster, but a living part of the cosmos, a sacred mountain, a dwelling place of gods, a symbol of the power and piety of the king who built it. These pyramids still stand today, more than 1,000 years later. The kings who built them are dust. The cities are ruins, reclaimed by jungle. But the pyramids remain, testament to human ambition, creativity, and determination. They rise above the trees as they did when new, reaching toward the sky, connecting earth to heaven. They are among the most impressive structures ever built by human hands, created by people who had no metal tools, no technology we would recognize, just vision, planning, knowledge, and the willingness to place one stone upon another, day after day, year after year, until the impossible became real. Part 4. Smart Inventions. The Maya Mind. The Maya were builders who created pyramids touching the sky. But they were also thinkers, inventors, scholars. They developed ideas far ahead of their time. Some of their discoveries wouldn't be matched in other parts of the world for hundreds or even thousands of years. Picture a small room in a palace, late at night. A single torch flickers, casting dancing shadows on the walls. An old man sits cross-legged on the floor, a bark paper book spread before him. His name is Itzamna, named after the god of wisdom. He's a priest, an astronomer, a mathematician, a keeper of knowledge. His gnarled fingers trace across the glyphs painted on the page. He's calculating, figuring dates thousands of years in the future, predicting when the moon will disappear from the sky, when Venus will rise as the morning star. This is where Maya genius lived, in quiet dedication, careful observation, patient accumulation of knowledge over generations. Let's start with numbers, the foundation of everything else the Maya achieved. The Maya number system was based on 20, 10 fingers and 10 toes, 20 digits total. While most civilizations counted by tens, the Maya counted by 20s. Their system was vigesimal. The Maya used only 3 symbols to write any number. 3 symbols for everything. The first symbol was a dot. A dot meant 1. The second symbol was a bar, a horizontal line. A bar meant 5. So 6 was a bar with a dot above it. 7 was a bar with 2 dots. 8 was a bar with 3 dots. 9 was a bar with 4 dots. 10 was 2 bars stacked together. 11 was 2 bars with a dot. 15 was 3 bars. 19 was 3 bars with 4 dots above them. This is clever but not revolutionary. Other civilizations had similar systems. But here's where the Maya made their leap of genius. They had a third symbol, a symbol that looked like a shell, or sometimes like an eye, or a little flower. This symbol meant 0, nothing, absence, emptiness. The Maya invented 0. They understood 0 as a concept, not just the absence of something, but 0 as a number itself, a placeholder, a mathematical tool. In Europe during the Middle Ages, there was no 0. Roman numerals had no 0. Try doing complex mathematics with Roman numerals. It's nearly impossible. The concept of zero didn't reach Europe until Arabic scholars brought it from India around 1200 AD, but the Maya had zero by at least 36 BC, possibly earlier. They figured it out independently, separated from the Old World by thousands of miles of ocean. Zero allows place value. In our number system, the position of a digit matters. The number 111 has 3 ones, but they mean different things. The rightmost one means 1. The middle one means 10. The leftmost one means 100. Same digit, different values depending on position. The Maya system worked the same way, except by 20s instead of 10s. A dot in the bottom position meant 1. A dot in the second position meant 20. A dot in the third position meant 400, 20 times 20. A dot in the fourth position meant 8,000, 20 times 20 times 20. Without zero, place value doesn't work. How would you write 20? If you just drew a dot in the second position, how would someone know it meant 20 and not 1? You need 0 as a placeholder in the first position. So, 20 was written as a dot in the second position and a shell in the first position. The shell says, "There's nothing in this position," making it clear the dot is in the 20s place. This allowed the Maya to write enormous numbers in the millions, even billions. They could calculate far into the past and future. Some Maya inscriptions reference dates over 1,000,000 years in the past, not because those dates were historically real, but because the Maya could calculate that far back for mythological purposes, demonstrating their mastery of numbers and time. Itzamna uses these numbers constantly. He's calculating the length of the lunar month, the time from one new moon to the next. This is important for the Maya calendar, which tracks both sun and moon. He has records going back decades, observations recorded by his predecessors. He knows the lunar month is approximately 29.53 days long. That's remarkably accurate. Modern astronomy tells us it's 29,559 days. The Maya, with no telescopes or instruments beyond their eyes, got it almost exactly right. How? Through patient, careful observation over many years. Every night priests watched the moon, noting its phase and position among the stars. They recorded everything in their books using their number system and writing. After years of observations, patterns became clear. The Maya developed a formula. They knew that 405 lunar months equaled almost exactly 11,960 days. Divide 11,960 by 405, and you get 29.5308642, extraordinarily close to the true value. This calculation required sophisticated mathematics, multiplication, division, working with large numbers. They did it all with their 3-symbol system and their concept of zero. Now let's talk about the calendar, where Maya mathematics and astronomy came together in a beautiful, complex system. The Maya didn't have just one calendar. They had several, all running simultaneously, all meshing together like gears in a great cosmic clock. The most basic calendar was the Tzolk'in, the 260-day calendar used for religious purposes, divination, and determining auspicious days for ceremonies, marriages, warfare, planting. The Tzolk'in combined 2 cycles, a cycle of 13 numbers and a cycle of 20-day names. The 20-day names were Imix, Ik, Akbal, Khan, Chichan, Tsimi, Manik, Lamat, Muluk, Ok, Chuen, Eb, Ben, Ix, Men, Tsib, Kaban, Etznab, Kawak, Ahau. Each name had meaning. Imix was associated with the earth monster, Ik with wind, Simi with death. Each day had a number from 1 to 13, and one of these 20 names. So you might have 1 Imix, then 2 Ik, then 3 Akbal, and so on. After you reach 13, you'd start over at 1, but you'd keep going through the day names. After all 20 day names, you'd start those over, but you'd still be counting up through the numbers. It takes 260 days before the same combination repeats. 13 times 20 equals 260. So each day in the Tzolk'in had a unique combination of number and name. Your birthday in the Tzolk'in was important. It influenced your personality, your destiny, your role in society. A child born on 1 Imix might be destined for leadership. A child born on 7th of Simi might have a connection to the underworld and become a priest. Then there was the Hab, the solar calendar, a 365-day calendar that tracked the seasons and the agricultural year. It was divided into 18 months of 20 days each, plus a short month of 5 days at the end. Those 5 days were called the Wayeb, considered unlucky and dangerous. The barriers between the human world and spirit world were thin during the Wayeb. People stayed home, avoided travel, made extra offerings to the gods. The 18 regular months had names like Pop, Wo, Zip, Zotz, Zek, Jul. Each day in the Hab was written with a number from 0 to 19 and the month name. So you might have 0 Pop, the first day of the month Pop, then 1 Pop, 2 Pop, up to 19 Pop, then 0 Wo, starting the next month. The Tzolk'in and the Hab ran simultaneously. Every day had both a Tzolk'in date and a Hab date. Today might be 4 Ahau 8 Kumku. 4 Ahau is the Tzolk'in date. 8 Kumku is the Hab date. These two calendars meshed together like gears. The Tzolk'in had 260 days. The Hab had 365 days. The same combination of Tzolk'in and Hab dates wouldn't occur again for 18,180 days, which equals 52 Hab years. This 52-year cycle was called the calendar round. The calendar round was extremely important. Living through a complete calendar round, 52 years, was a major accomplishment. Not everyone lived that long. Reaching the end of a calendar round and beginning a new one was a time of great ceremony and some anxiety. The world had completed a full cycle. Would the gods allow it to continue? Would the sun rise again? The Maya held ceremonies to ensure the world would go on. But even the calendar round wasn't enough. The Maya wanted to track history, to record events in a way that could never be confused or repeated, so they developed the long count. The long count was a way of counting days from a fixed starting point, like we count years from the birth of Christ. The Maya starting point was a mythological date when the current world was created. In our calendar, this date was August 11th, 3114 BC. Why that date? We don't know exactly, probably based on mythological calculations, the movements of Venus, connections to their creation stories. From that starting point, the Maya counted forward in days, but they didn't just say, today is day 1872342. Instead, they used their base 20 system to break the count into manageable chunks. The smallest unit was the kin, 1 day. 20 kins made a winal, a period of 20 days. 18 winals made a ton, a period of 360 days. Notice this isn't exactly a solar year, it's a round number in their system. 18 times 20 equals 360. 20 tons made a katun, a period of 7,200 days, about 20 years. 20 katuns made a baktun, a period of 144,000 days, about 394 years. The Maya wrote long count dates in a specific format. The number of baktuns, then katuns, then tons, then winals, then kins. So a date might be 9.15, 10.010, 9 baktuns, 15 katuns, 10 tons, 0 winals, 0 kins. If you multiply it out and add it up, you get 1,412,200 days since the creation date. Add that to August 11th, 3114 BC, and you arrive at August 6th, 741 AD. This system allowed the Maya to record any historical date unambiguously, no confusion, no repetition. When they carved a monument to commemorate a king's victory, they recorded the exact date in the long count. Modern scholars can read that date and know exactly when it happened. Itzamna works with all these calendars constantly. He calculates when important ceremonies should occur, determines auspicious dates for royal weddings, construction projects, warfare. He predicts eclipses, times when the sun or moon would be eaten by a celestial monster, requiring special ceremonies to ensure they'd return. The Maya tracked eclipses with impressive accuracy. They knew lunar eclipses followed a pattern, repeating every 173 days or so. They knew solar eclipses were rarer and more complex. They recorded all of this in their books, building up centuries of astronomical knowledge. They also tracked Venus, which they considered extremely important. Venus is the brightest object in the sky after the sun and moon. The Maya knew Venus's cycle precisely, 584 days from one morning star appearance to the next. They knew Venus went through phases, visible as morning star for about 263 days, then invisible for about 50 days, then visible as evening star for another 263 days, then invisible again for 8 days, then the cycle repeated. Venus was associated with war. The Maya considered certain days in the Venus cycle especially auspicious for warfare. Kings would time their attacks to coincide with Venus's first appearance as morning star. Imagine being an enemy city, waking at dawn to see Venus blazing in the east and an enemy army at your gates. All of this astronomical knowledge required not just observation, but calculation. The Maya needed to predict future events, to know in advance when eclipses would occur, when Venus would appear, when calendar cycles would align in important ways. This required mathematics, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, working with large numbers, calculating complex patterns. Now let's talk about Maya writing, another area of genius. The Maya developed one of the most sophisticated writing systems in the ancient world. It was a full writing system, not just pictures, not just symbols for ideas, but a true script that could express the nuances of spoken language. Maya writing used glyphs, small pictures or symbols, but these glyphs worked in multiple ways. Some glyphs were logograms. They represented whole words. The glyph for jaguar looked somewhat like a jaguar and meant the word jaguar. But other glyphs were phonetic. They represented sounds, called syllable glyphs, because each represented a consonant-vowel combination. There was a glyph for ba, another for ka, another for la, and so on. By combining these syllable glyphs, you could spell out any word in the Maya language. In practice, Maya writing used both approaches simultaneously. A single word might be written entirely with syllable glyphs, or entirely with a logogram, or with a combination. A logogram plus phonetic complements to clarify pronunciation. This made Maya writing complex but also flexible and expressive. There were about 800 different glyphs in use, though not all at the same time or in all places. A skilled scribe would know several hundred glyphs. Learning to read and write was a years-long process, beginning in childhood. Only the elite learned to write: nobles, priests, professional scribes. Literacy was a source of power and prestige. Scribes painted glyphs on pottery, creating beautiful painted vases that told stories or recorded historical events. They carved glyphs into stone monuments, those stelae I mentioned earlier. They painted glyphs on walls in palaces and temples. And they wrote codices, books made from bark paper, folded accordion style, covered with plaster, then painted with glyphs and illustrations. These codices contained everything: history, astronomy, prophecy, mythology, ritual instructions. A single codex might have 40 or 50 pages, covered front and back with densely packed glyphs and colorful illustrations. Making a codex took months. The paper had to be prepared from the inner bark of fig trees, pounded, boiled, shaped, plastered. The scribe had to grind pigments from minerals and plants. Then came the careful work of painting each glyph, getting proportions right, making them beautiful as well as readable. Tragically, most Maya codices were destroyed. When Spanish conquistadors and priests arrived in the 1500s, they saw these books as pagan, as evil. Bishop Diego de Landa ordered them burned. "We found a large number of books," he wrote, "and as they contained nothing in which there were not to be seen superstition and lies of the devil, we burned them all." Only 4 Maya codices survived, 4 books out of thousands. But carved stone monuments survived, and so did painted pottery. Modern scholars have learned to read Maya glyphs, slowly deciphering this ancient script. The breakthrough came in the 1950s and 60s, when scholars realized Maya glyphs were phonetic, not just symbolic. Once they understood this, they could start matching glyphs to sounds, sounds to words, words to meaning. Now we can read about 80 or 90% of Maya glyphs. We can read the names of kings, the dates of battles, the dedications of buildings. The Maya speak to us across the centuries through their writing, telling us their history in their own words. Here's an example of what a Maya text might say, from a carved monument at Piedras Negra. On the day 912.2.016, 5 Kib 14 Yaxkin, that's the long count date, the Tzolkin date, and the Hab date, the king Kinich Yonal Ak II was seated in power. He was the son of the lady Kat Najau and the lord Itzamnaj Kawil. He dedicated this monument on 9/15/15/0.0 Su Ahau 13 Jul to commemorate his victory over the warriors of Pomona. All of that information, names, dates, relationships, historical events, encoded in glyphs carved into stone. The king wanted his achievements remembered forever. And here we are, over 1,000 years later, reading about him. Maya scribes had different styles and preferences. Some were elaborate and decorative, making glyphs into works of art. Others were straightforward and practical. Some scribes signed their work. This vase was painted by the scribe so-and-so, taking pride in their craft. The most talented scribes were highly valued. They worked in palace workshops, supported by the king. Some seemed to have been members of the nobility themselves. Scribal knowledge ran in families. Fathers taught sons, uncles taught nephews, passing down the complex skill of writing over generations. Writing wasn't just for recording. The Maya believed writing had power. The glyphs themselves were alive in some sense. When you wrote someone's name, you were capturing part of their essence. When you wrote a date, you were connecting to the sacred calendar, to the flow of time itself. Writing was ritual, magic, prayer. This is why glyphs appear everywhere in Maya cities, on monuments, on buildings, on pottery, on jewelry, even on small portable objects. Every carved glyph was an act of creation, an act of connecting to the divine. Some glyphs are still mysterious. We can recognize them but aren't sure exactly what they mean. Maybe they're names of gods we don't fully understand. Maybe they're technical terms for religious concepts we haven't grasped yet. Maybe they're poetry, metaphors, wordplay that doesn't translate directly. There's still more to learn. Itzamna finishes his page in the codex. He sets down his brush and examines his work. The glyphs are clear, the information accurate. Future generations will read this page and learn from it. His knowledge won't die with him. It will be preserved, passed down, built upon. Outside his window, the night sky blazes with stars. The Milky Way arches overhead. Venus hangs in the west, the evening star, brilliant and steady. The moon, 3 days past full, rises in the east. Itzamna looks up at this sky, the same sky humans have looked at since the dawn of time, but he sees patterns others don't see. He sees meaning, order, divine purpose. He sees mathematics and mythology woven together. He sees the past and future laid out in the movements of light across darkness. The Maya observed not just sun, moon, and planets, but also stars and constellations. They had their own constellations, not the same as ours. Where we see Orion the hunter, the Maya saw a turtle. The 3 stars of Orion's belt were 3 hearthstones, marking the cosmic hearth where the gods created the world. They identified the Milky Way as the world tree, or as a great river flowing through the sky, the road to the underworld that souls traveled after death. The dark rift in the Milky Way, where dust clouds blocked the light of stars, was the mouth of a cosmic monster, or the entrance to Xibalba. They knew the planets visible to the naked eye: Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury. They tracked their movements, though Venus was by far the most important. They knew planets moved differently than stars. Stars stayed in fixed patterns relative to each other, but planets wandered, appearing in different positions against the stellar background. They understood the ecliptic, the path the sun appears to travel against background stars over the course of a year. They knew the moon and planets also traveled along or near this path. They divided the ecliptic into constellations, somewhat like our zodiac, though with different images and meanings. All of this knowledge was practical and religious simultaneously. Knowing when to plant crops required understanding the solar year and seasons, but planting was also a religious act, requiring ceremonies and offerings to the corn god. The two aspects were inseparable. The Maya concept of time itself was different from ours. We think of time as linear, flowing from past to present to future, never repeating. The Maya thought of time as cyclical, history repeated. The same patterns came around again and again. The calendar round completed and began anew. The long count was counting toward a future date when the current world would end and a new one would begin. This date, the end of the 13th Baktun, fell on December 21st, 2012 in our calendar. Some people got worried about this, predicting the world would end. But for the Maya, it wasn't an ending, just the completion of a cycle, like an odometer rolling over. One great cycle ended, another began. Life continued. But within these cycles, the Maya believed certain dates were more important than others. Period endings, when a Khatun completed, or especially when a Baktun completed, were times of significance. Kings made sure to dedicate monuments on period endings, connecting themselves to the cosmic cycle. Maya mathematicians could calculate far into the past and future. Some inscriptions reference dates 400 million years in the past. Obviously, the Maya world didn't exist 400 million years ago. These were mythological dates, calculating when certain gods were born, when cosmic events occurred in Maya mythology. But the fact that they could do these calculations shows their mathematical sophistication. The Dresden Codex, one of the 4 surviving Maya books, contains complex astronomical tables. There are tables for predicting lunar eclipses, covering 33 years. There are tables for Venus, predicting its appearances over 104 years, 2 calendar rounds. The accuracy is remarkable. Modern astronomers studying these tables are impressed by how precise they are. The Maya did all this without instruments we take for granted. No telescopes, no precise clocks, no computers for calculations. They had their eyes, sighting sticks to measure angles, and their mathematical system. They had patience, dedication, and centuries of accumulated knowledge. They built structures aligned to astronomical events. The Caracol at Chichen Itza is a circular building with windows aligned to track Venus at its extreme positions. The governor's palace at Uxmal is aligned to the southernmost rising point of Venus. Doorways in temples framed the rising sun at equinoxes or solstices. These alignments weren't accidental. The Maya carefully planned them, incorporating astronomical knowledge into their architecture. A king who could make the sun shine through a doorway on a specific day, illuminating an altar, that king demonstrated divine favor, cosmic understanding, the right to rule. The Maya, in the jungles of Central America, with Stone Age technology, developed sophisticated mathematics. They invented zero independently. They created a writing system that could express any thought. They tracked the movements of celestial bodies with precision that wouldn't be matched in Europe for another 1,000 years. They weren't primitive. They were brilliant. Different from European civilization, yes. Different priorities, different worldviews. But not less intelligent, not less capable. Their achievements in mathematics, astronomy, and writing rank among humanity's greatest intellectual accomplishments. As the night continues, the stars wheel slowly across the sky. The Maya astronomer watches, calculates, records, building knowledge that will echo through time. Part 5. Kings and Gods, the Divine and the Human. The sun rises over the city of Tikal. It's a special day, the completion of a Khatun, a 20-year cycle in the Maya calendar. Days like this come only once in a generation. The entire city has been preparing for weeks. Today the king will appear before his people in his full divine glory. Today the barrier between gods and humans will grow thin. In the royal palace, deep within the private chambers, the king is being prepared. His name is Jasa Chan Kawil, which means heavenly standard bearer. He's been king for 30 years, a powerful ruler who expanded Tikal's influence, defeated rival cities, built great monuments. But today isn't about political power. Today is about his sacred role as intermediary between the human and divine realms. Servants attend him. First, they bathe him in water blessed by priests, mixed with sacred herbs. They wash away anything ordinary, anything mundane. When he appears before his people, he must be pure, approaching the divine. They dress him. First, a loincloth of the finest cotton, woven with intricate patterns, dyed deep red from cochineal. Over this, a belt decorated with jade plaques, each carefully carved and polished. Jade, that precious green stone, the color of growing corn, the color of life itself. Around his chest, they place a pectoral covering his torso, made of hundreds of small jade pieces, assembled into a mosaic, showing the sun god's face. The craftsmanship is exquisite. Each tiny piece fits perfectly, creating an image that seems alive. When the king moves, the jade catches the light, shimmering. His wrists receive jade bracelets, his ankles too. Around his neck, multiple strands of jade beads, some carved into shapes of flowers, birds, gods. In his ears, enormous jade ear spools, cylinders fitting through holes stretched in his earlobes several inches across. Wearing them is uncomfortable, but that discomfort is part of the sacrifice, part of what makes him worthy to speak with the gods. His headdress is the most elaborate piece. Built on a frame rising 3 feet above his head, jade ornaments form the base. Then come feathers, brilliant green quetzal feathers, each one 2 feet long, shimmering in the light. These feathers come from cloud forests hundreds of miles away. Quetzals are sacred birds, rare and difficult to catch. Their feathers are more precious than gold. The king's headdress contains perhaps 50 of these feathers, arranged in a fan spreading behind his head like wings. Mixed in are red macaw feathers, blue cotinga feathers, yellow parrot feathers. The effect is breathtaking, a rainbow rising from his head, making him appear taller, more than human. His face is painted. Red on one side, black on the other. Red for the east, for the rising sun, for life and blood. Black for the west, for the setting sun, for death and transformation. The king embodies both. He is life and death. He is sunrise and sunset. He is the axis around which the world turns. In his right hand, he holds a scepter carved from jade and wood, topped with the head of Kawil, the lightning god. This scepter symbolizes his power, his divine right to rule. In his left hand, a shield decorated with the image of the jaguar god of the underworld. The jaguar represents power, ferocity, the ability to move between day and night, between the living world and the underworld. The jade alone weighs perhaps 30 or 40 pounds. The headdress is heavy and unwieldy. But the king has done this many times. He knows how to move in a way that appears effortless, godlike. Outside in the great plaza, thousands of people are gathering. They've come from all over, from Tikal, from surrounding villages, from subject cities. Some walked for days to be here. This ceremony happens only once every 20 years. The plaza has been prepared. Fresh white limestone plaster makes the ground brilliant, almost glowing in the morning sun. Temporary structures around the edges provide platforms for nobles and covered areas for shade. In the center, directly before the largest pyramid, a new stone monument has been erected, a stela, 12 feet tall, carved with the king's image and glyphs recording his achievements. Musicians are already playing. The sound fills the plaza, echoes off the pyramid faces. Log drums carved from single tree trunks, covered with animal skins stretched tight, produce deep resonating tones you feel in your chest. Drummers play complex rhythms, different drums weaving in and out, creating patterns representing the heartbeat of the cosmos. Rattles made from gourds filled with seeds shake in rhythm with the drums. Flutes carved from bone or clay produce high, haunting melodies. Conch shell trumpets sound their low, mournful tones. Turtle shell drums, struck with deer antlers, make a unique clicking, resonating sound. The music is constant, hypnotic. It's been playing since before dawn and will continue all day. This isn't entertainment. This is sacred sound, creating an environment where the divine can manifest, where barriers between worlds can dissolve. Dancers move in the plaza, trained performers dressed as gods and animals. One wears a jaguar costume, moving with feline grace. Another is dressed as the maize god, young and beautiful, wearing a headdress shaped like a corn ear, his body painted yellow-green. Another represents Chak, the rain god, his mask showing the god's long, curved nose, his costume colored in blues and greens. The dancers move in patterns, circles, lines, spirals. Their movements tell stories, acting out myths, how the world was created, how the gods defeated chaos, how humans came to be. Without words, the stories are clear to everyone watching. Children have heard these stories since birth. The dances make them visible, tangible, real. Incense smoke rises from hundreds of clay censers placed around the plaza. The incense is copal, a tree resin producing thick white smoke and a sweet piney smell. To the Maya, this smoke carries prayers and offerings up to the heavens. The smoke is so thick in places it's like fog, making dancers appear and disappear, adding to the mystical atmosphere. The crowd waits. They've been waiting for hours. Children sit with their parents, wide-eyed, taking in all the sights and sounds. This is one of those days they'll remember their whole lives. Finally, there's a change in the drumming, a new rhythm, more urgent, more intense. The crowd stirs. The king is coming. From the palace, a procession emerges. First come the priests, 30 or 40 of them, dressed in white robes, their faces painted, their jade jewelry gleaming. They carry sacred objects, ceramic censers burning copal, bark paper books, stingray spines for bloodletting, obsidian blades. Behind them come the nobles, men and women of high rank, the king's relatives, ruling families of Tikal and subject cities. They're dressed in fine clothing, wearing jade, though nothing as elaborate as the king's. They walk in specific order according to rank and lineage. To walk out of order would be a serious breach of protocol, an insult to the cosmic hierarchy, and then comes the king. The crowd gasps. Even though they've seen him before, the sight is overwhelming. The jade glitters, the feathers shimmer, the paint on his face makes him look both beautiful and terrifying. He doesn't walk like an ordinary man. His steps are measured, slow, deliberate. Each movement expresses power, grace, divinity. Servants carry a canopy over his head, a cloth shade protecting him from the sun, but also symbolic, separating him from common air, marking him as special. Musicians walk beside him, playing continuously. Guards in jaguar pelts walk in front and behind. The procession moves slowly across the plaza. The crowd parts to let them through. No one speaks. The only sounds are drums, flutes, shells, rattles. The incense smoke swirls. The sun climbs higher. The heat builds, but no one moves. All eyes are on the king. He reaches the base of the Great Pyramid. The stairway rises before him, over 100 steps, steep and high. This climb is part of the ritual. The king must ascend to the temple at the top, to the place where earth meets sky, where he can speak with the gods. He begins to climb. Even for a man in good health, this would be challenging. For a man wearing 40 pounds of jade and an enormous feathered headdress, it's a feat of endurance. But the king shows no strain. He climbs steadily, never faltering, never pausing. To show weakness would be unthinkable. Behind him, the priests follow. The nobles remain at the base. Only the king and priests will go to the top. The climb takes perhaps 10 minutes. Finally, the king reaches the top terrace. He turns to face the crowd below. From this height, the people look small. The plaza looks vast. He can see beyond the city, out to the jungle stretching to the horizon. He's between earth and sky now, in the liminal space where transformation happens. The priests arrange themselves behind him. One brings forward a ceramic incense burner, carved in the shape of a god's face, smoke pouring from its mouth. Another brings a bark paper book, opening it to a page covered with glyphs. Another prepares the instruments for bloodletting. The king raises his arms. The crowd below falls completely silent. Even the musicians stop. In this moment of silence, you can hear the wind, the birds, the rustle of leaves. The king begins to speak. His voice is strong, carrying across the plaza. He speaks in formal, ritual language, not everyday Maya, but special language used for ceremonies, full of metaphors and poetic phrases. I stand before you, Kulahau, divine lord of Tikal. I stand between the middle world and the overworld, between humans and gods. On this day, as the Khatoon completes, as the great cycle turns, I offer myself as a bridge, a conduit, a living connection. He speaks of his ancestors, his father, his grandfather, going back generations. He names them, honors them, connects himself to the long line of kings who ruled before him. He speaks of his accomplishments, the cities he defeated, the monuments he built, the prosperity he brought to Tikal. But he attributes all of this to the gods, to their favor, to his role as their representative on earth. Then comes the moment everyone has been waiting for, the bloodletting. A priest brings forward a stingray spine, a long, sharp spike from the tail of a stingray, brought from the coast hundreds of miles away. These spines are sacred, used only for this purpose. The king takes the spine. Without hesitation, without any sign of fear, he pierces his tongue. Blood flows. The king lets it drip onto strips of bark paper held by priests. The blood soaks into the paper, staining it red. Blood is the most precious offering, the most sacred substance. The king is giving his own life force to the gods, demonstrating his devotion, his willingness to suffer for his people. The pain must be intense, but the king shows nothing. His face remains calm, almost serene. This is his role. This is why he was born, why he was trained from childhood, why he wears the jade and feathers. This is the price of being king, to stand between worlds, to suffer so others don't have to feed the gods so the sun will rise and the rain will fall and the corn will grow. The priests take the blood-soaked paper and place it in the incense burner. It catches fire immediately, burning quickly. The smoke rises, carrying the king's blood, his essence, up to the heavens. The gods are being fed. The cosmic balance is being maintained. The king continues the ceremony. There are more prayers, more offerings. He pours chocolate on the ground, liquid cacao, precious and sacred, returning to the earth from which it came. He burns copal incense. He scatters jade beads, letting them fall from the pyramid top, bouncing down the stairs. People below will gather these beads later, keeping them as sacred objects, blessings from the king and the gods. Hours pass. The sun reaches its zenith, directly overhead, the time of maximum power. Below, the musicians have started again. The dancers resume their movements. Life continues, but transformed, elevated, made sacred by the king's presence and actions. Now let me tell you about the gods the Maya worshipped, because understanding them helps us understand Maya civilization itself. The Maya cosmos had 3 levels: the overworld, where the gods lived, up in the sky and beyond; the middle world, where humans lived, the surface of the earth; and the underworld, Xibalba, below the earth, a dark place ruled by death gods. But these levels weren't separate. They connected, overlapped, influenced each other. The world tree grew through all 3 levels, its roots in Xibalba, its trunk in the middle world, its branches in the overworld. The tree was the axis, the connection, the path between worlds. At the top of the cosmic hierarchy was Itzamna, the supreme creator god. His name meant something like iguana house or lizard house. He was old, wise, sometimes shown as a toothless old man, sometimes as a celestial bird. Itzamna gave humans writing, learning, civilization itself. He was the patron of priests and scribes. Kinich Ajah, the sun god, traveled across the sky every day, bringing light and warmth. But at night, he descended into Xibalba, where he had to battle the death gods. His nightly journey was perilous. If he failed, if the death gods defeated him, the sun wouldn't rise. The world would end. So priests performed ceremonies to strengthen him, to help him survive his journey, to ensure dawn would come. Chak was the rain god, enormously important in a land where drought could mean famine and death. Chak was shown with a long, curved nose like an elephant's trunk, probably based on the tapir, a large animal with a prehensile snout. He carried a lightning axe. When he struck it, thunder boomed and lightning flashed and rain fell. There were actually 4 Chaks, one for each cardinal direction, each associated with a different color. Red Chak in the east, white Chak in the north, black Chak in the west, yellow Chak in the south. The maize god was one of the most beloved deities, shown as eternally young, beautiful, with a head shaped like an ear of corn. He represented life, sustenance, beauty, everything good, but he was also vulnerable. Each year he died and had to be reborn. The agricultural cycle, planting, growing, harvest, the empty months before planting again, this was the story of the maize god's death and resurrection. When farmers planted corn, they were helping to resurrect the god. When they harvested, they were participating in his sacrifice. There were the hero twins, Hunhunapu and Yaxbalam, the greatest heroes of Maya mythology. Their father and uncle had been summoned to Xibalba by the death gods to play the ball game. The death gods cheated and killed them, but the father's skull was placed in a tree and impregnated an underworld maiden by spitting into her hand. She fled to the surface and gave birth to the hero twins. When the twins grew up, they were challenged by the same death gods to come to Xibalba and play the ball game. The twins went, but unlike their father, they were clever. They passed all the tests the death gods set. They survived the House of Knives by convincing the knives not to cut them. They survived the House of Jaguars by feeding the jaguars bones instead of their own flesh. They survived the House of Fire and the House of Bats. Finally, they played the ball game against the death gods. Through skill and trickery, they won. Then they tricked the death gods into being killed, defeating death itself. The twins were transformed. One became the sun, the other became the moon. They ascended to the sky where they remain, traveling across the heavens every day, eternal reminders that death can be overcome. This story explained why the sun and moon exist. It showed that cleverness and courage could triumph over evil. It promised that death wasn't final, that transformation and rebirth were possible. When Maya nobles were buried, they were often dressed as the hero twins, hoping to follow their path through the underworld and be reborn. The jaguar god of the underworld was a terrifying deity associated with night, death, warfare. Jaguars themselves were sacred animals, powerful predators, equally at home in daytime and nighttime, able to climb trees, swim rivers, walk silently through the jungle. They represented the king's power. Kings wore jaguar pelts, sat on jaguar skin thrones, took jaguar names. Ixchel, the moon goddess, was associated with weaving, childbirth, medicine. She was often shown as an old woman, though she could also appear young. She represented the feminine divine, the creative power of women. Her domain was the home, the loom, the birthing room, places of transformation where raw materials became cloth, where pregnancy became a child. There were many more gods, gods of merchants, war, hunting, scribes, specific cities. Some gods had multiple aspects, appearing different ways in different contexts. The god of lightning might appear as a serpent, a stone axe, or a human wielding an axe. The same divine essence, different forms. Understanding these gods helps us understand Maya life. The gods weren't distant, abstract concepts. They were present, active, involved in daily life. When a farmer planted corn, he was working with the maize god. When it rained, Chak was answering prayers. When a baby was born, Ixchel was present. When a king went to war, the jaguar god empowered him. This is why ceremonies were so important, why they happened constantly. The gods needed to be honored, fed, thanked, appeased. Without proper ceremonies, the gods might withdraw their favor. The rain might stop. The corn might fail. Enemies might attack. The cosmic balance would tip toward chaos. So there were ceremonies for planting, harvest, birth, death, marriage, war, peace, the passage of time. Some ceremonies were private, performed by families in their homes. Others were public spectacles like today, involving the whole community. Music and dance were crucial to ceremonies. The Maya believed music could attract the gods, could create the right atmosphere for the divine to manifest. Different gods preferred different music. Chak liked the sound of turtle shells and rain sticks. The maize god liked flutes and gentle rattles. War gods liked aggressive drumming. Dancers often entered trance states during long ceremonies. They'd dance for hours, sometimes days, barely eating or drinking, pushing their bodies to the limit. In this altered state, the boundaries of the self dissolved. Dancers became the gods they were portraying. They weren't acting, they were embodying. When a dancer wore the costume of Chak and performed Chak's movements, Chak was present. The dancer became a vessel for the divine. Colors were important in ceremonies. Each direction had its color. East was red, the color of sunrise, blood, life. North was white, the color of bones, purity, death as transformation. West was black, the color of sunset, the underworld, endings. South was yellow, the color of ripe corn, abundance, growth. The center, where the world tree stood, was green or blue-green, the color of jade and young corn. Ceremonial costumes used these colors deliberately. A priest performing a ceremony for rain might wear blue-green, Chak's color. A priest performing a ceremony for a successful birth might wear red for lifeblood. A priest performing funeral rites might wear white. Festivals occurred throughout the year, tied to the calendar. When the Hab month changed, there were ceremonies to honor the outgoing month's patron deity and welcome the incoming month's deity. The 5 unlucky days at the end of the Hab year, the Wayeb, were a time of fasting, prayer, and anxiety. During the Wayeb, the barriers between worlds were thin. Demons and evil spirits could more easily enter the middle world. People stayed home, avoided travel, made extra offerings to protect themselves. When the Wayeb ended and the new year began, there was great celebration. The worst had passed. The world had survived another cycle. Life would continue. Festivals would last for days. Feasting, dancing, drinking corn beer called chicha, playing games, renewing community bonds. The king's role in all of this cannot be overstated. He wasn't just a political leader. He was the axis around which the sacred and mundane revolved. His bloodline connected him to the gods. Often, kings claimed descent from specific deities. Jasau Chankawil traced his lineage back through 30 generations to a mythological founder who was the son of a god. This divine ancestry gave the king the right and ability to communicate with the gods. When he performed bloodletting, when he burned incense, when he prayed, the gods listened because he was family. His prayers carried weight that ordinary people's prayers didn't. But this privilege came with enormous responsibility. If things went wrong, if drought came, if enemies attacked, if disease spread, it was the king's fault. He had failed to maintain the proper relationship with the gods. In extreme cases, a king might be overthrown or even sacrificed if the people believed he'd lost divine favor. So the king spent much of his time in ceremonial duties. He wasn't managing day-to-day governance. Officials and nobles handled that. The king's job was sacred. He performed rituals, made offerings, consulted with priests about auspicious dates, conducted important ceremonies. He was the living embodiment of the state's relationship with the divine. Royal women also had ceremonial roles. The king's principal wife, the queen, often performed her own bloodletting rituals. She had her own regalia, her own jade jewelry, her own elaborate costumes. In some cities, queens were nearly as prominent as kings in inscriptions and artwork. They conducted ceremonies, dedicated monuments, even occasionally led military campaigns. Royal children were raised from birth knowing their sacred destiny. A prince who would become king underwent years of training. He learned the calendar, the names of gods, the proper forms of prayer. He learned to endure pain for bloodletting. He learned to wear the heavy jade and feather costumes. He learned to move in a way that expressed divinity. By the time he became king, his identity was inseparable from his role. He wasn't a man pretending to be divine. He believed he was divine, or at least semi-divine, and everyone around him reinforced this belief. Back on the pyramid, hours have passed. The sun is starting to descend toward the west. The king has completed his rituals. He's exhausted. The fasting before the ceremony, the physical strain of wearing the costume, the pain of bloodletting, the mental focus required. But he shows nothing. He remains regal, composed, godlike. He descends the pyramid stairs slowly, carefully. At the bottom, the priests and nobles wait. The crowd watches in continued reverent silence. The king returns to the palace in the same slow procession. But the ceremony isn't over. Now comes the feast. The king has provided food for everyone. Royal storehouses have been opened. There are huge pots of corn stew, mountains of tortillas, roasted deer and turkey, tamales, chocolate for everyone. This generosity demonstrates the king's wealth and power. A good king feeds his people. Tables and mats are spread throughout the plaza. People eat together, family groups and friends, talking excitedly about what they witnessed. Children replay the ceremony in their games, pretending to be the king, wearing makeshift headdresses made from leaves. Musicians continue playing, but the music has changed. It's more relaxed now, more joyful. People dance, not formal ceremonial dances, but social dances, celebrating, enjoying life. Some drink balche, a mildly alcoholic beverage made from fermented honey and tree bark. The prohibition against public drunkenness is relaxed today. Excess is permitted, even encouraged. As evening comes, fires are lit throughout the plaza. The flames create flickering light, casting dancing shadows. The stone monuments and pyramids glow in the firelight. The sound of drums and flutes and rattles fills the air. The party will continue into the night, possibly for several days. The Khatun has ended. A new Khatun has begun. The world continues. The gods are satisfied. The king has fulfilled his duty. This was the heart of Maya civilization, not just the physical cities, not just the mathematics and astronomy, but this. The relationship between humans and gods, mediated by kings and priests. The constant effort to maintain cosmic balance through ceremony and sacrifice. The belief that the divine and human realms were connected, that human actions mattered to the gods, that the gods' actions responded to human devotion. For the Maya, this was reality. They had centuries of evidence their system worked. When they performed rain ceremonies, rain eventually came. When they blessed the corn planting, corn grew. When the king made offerings at the completion of the Khatun, the sun rose the next morning. The world continued. They didn't have our scientific understanding of weather patterns and agriculture. They understood the world through myth, through story, through the lens of divine action. And within that understanding, their beliefs were logical, consistent, effective. They created a functioning civilization that lasted for thousands of years. The gods and kings were inseparable from Maya life. Every achievement, every building, every mathematical calculation, every written word, all of it was ultimately in service of the sacred, in maintaining the relationship between heaven and earth. This is what made the Maya who they were. As the Khatun ceremony ends, as the people feast and celebrate, as the king rests in his palace, the cosmos turns. The stars wheel overhead. Venus glows in the darkening western sky. The moon rises, 3 days past full, climbing slowly over the pyramids. The gods watch from the overworld. The ancestors watch from the underworld. And in the middle world, between death and divinity, the Maya people live their lives, connected to all of it, part of the great cosmic dance, playing their role in the eternal story. Part 6. Mysterious End. The year is now 850 AD. We're standing in the same great plaza in Tikal, where just decades ago, thousands gathered for the Khatun ceremony. But something has changed. The plaza is quieter. Fewer people move through it. Weeds are growing between the limestone paving stones, pushing up through cracks, breaking apart the smooth white surface that was once kept perfect. Look at the pyramid. The brilliant white plaster is fading, stained by rain and time. In places, chunks have fallen away, revealing the rough limestone blocks beneath. No one has repaired this. No work crews climb the pyramid with fresh plaster and paint. The temple at the top stands empty. No smoke rises from its doorways. No priests conduct ceremonies there anymore. The palace complex is partially abandoned. Some buildings are still occupied, but others stand empty, their doorways dark, their rooms filled with leaves blown in by wind. The royal workshops are silent. The scribes are gone. The jade carvers have left. The weavers no longer work their looms. In the residential areas beyond the city center, it's even more apparent. Whole neighborhoods stand empty. Houses with no cooking fires. Gardens overgrown, gone wild, reverting to jungle. Paths once worn smooth by thousands of feet are now covered with vegetation. Young trees are growing in what were once courtyards. What happened here? This is one of the great mysteries of archaeology. Why did the Maya cities of the classic period collapse? Why were these magnificent centers of civilization abandoned, left to be reclaimed by the jungle? The answer isn't simple. There's no single event, no single cause. Instead, there was a combination of factors that came together over decades, creating a crisis the Maya couldn't overcome. It started with the environment. The Maya lowlands, the area where cities like Tikal, Calakmul, Palenque, and dozens of others flourished, this region has a challenging climate. There are 2 seasons, the wet season from May to November when rain falls almost daily, and the dry season from December to April when little or no rain falls. Maya agriculture depended on this pattern. Farmers would plant corn at the start of the rainy season. The rain would make the corn grow. By harvest time, the dry season was beginning. Then farmers would clear fields and prepare for the next planting. But this system had little margin for error. If the rains came late, if they were insufficient, if they stopped too early, the corn would fail. And without corn, there was nothing. Corn was the foundation of everything, the majority of the diet, what they fed to their animals, what they used for offerings to the gods. No corn meant famine. Around 800 AD, something changed in the climate. Scientists have studied this by examining sediment cores from lake bottoms, analyzing tree rings, examining stalagmites in caves, all the ways we can read ancient climate. What they found is evidence of a significant drought. Not just one dry year, but a pattern of below normal rainfall lasting decades, possibly more than a century. This wasn't the first drought the Maya had experienced. There had been dry periods before. But this one came at a particularly bad time. The Maya population had grown enormous during the Classic period. Tikal alone may have had 60,000 to 100,000 people living in and around the city. Calakmul was similarly large. Across the Maya lowlands, the population might have reached several million people. All these people needed food. The forests had been cleared for miles around the cities to create farmland. The good, easily accessible land was already being farmed. Some farmers were working marginal land, hillsides that eroded easily, swampy areas that flooded. thin-soiled areas that weren't very productive. In good years, with normal rainfall, the system worked. There was enough food for everyone, plus surplus to support the kings, nobles, priests, scribes, craftsmen, builders, all the people who didn't grow their own food. But when the drought came, everything became precarious. Imagine you're a farmer named Akui, living in a village a few miles from Tikal. It's the year 810 AD. You've planted your corn as usual at the start of what should be the rainy season, but the rains are light this year. Your corn sprouts, but it's not growing vigorously. The leaves are pale green instead of deep green. The stalks are thin. You pray to Chak, the rain god. You make offerings, burning incense, pouring out chocolate. You do everything the priests say you should do, but still, the rain is insufficient. By harvest time, your corn crop is poor. The ears are small, not filled out properly. Instead of harvesting enough corn to feed your family for a year with surplus left over, you barely have enough for your family. You have nothing extra to give as tribute to the king. This is happening to farmers all over the region. The royal storehouses, usually full of tribute corn, are nearly empty. The king can't feed all the people who depend on him. The craftsmen, the scribes, the builders, the warriors. Work on the new pyramid stops. There's no food to feed the construction workers. The craftsmen who made luxury goods for trade, their pottery workshops close. Without surplus corn, there's nothing to trade. The long-distance merchants who used to travel between cities, carrying goods and information, they stop coming. The roads are empty. The next year you plant again, hoping this year will be better. But it's not. The rain is light again. Your harvest is poor again. Your children are always hungry now. They're thinner than they should be. When disease comes, and disease always comes, they're more vulnerable, less able to fight it off. You hear that some villages farther from the city have been abandoned. The people left, walking toward the north where they heard the drought was less severe, or toward the coast where they could fish, where food might be easier to find. You think about leaving too. But this land has been your family's land for generations. Your ancestors are buried here. The gods you've always worshipped are here. Leaving feels like a betrayal. So you stay. You plant again the next year, though you're using seeds you should have eaten. You're making a bet on the future. Multiply this story by thousands of families, hundreds of villages. You start to see how the system breaks down. With less food being produced, there's less tribute going to the cities. The cities can't support their populations. People start to leave, moving back to farming, trying to grow their own food. The population of the cities drops. With fewer people in the cities, there are fewer ceremonies, less construction, less artistic production. The civilization defined by its great urban centers is becoming less urban, less centralized, but drought was only one factor. There was also warfare. During the Classic period, Maya cities were often at war with each other. Wars weren't usually about conquering territory or imposing rule. Wars were about prestige, about capturing enemies for sacrifice, about demonstrating a king's power. Warfare was a way for young nobles to prove themselves, to gain honor and status. These wars could be brutal, but they followed patterns. Battles were often scheduled on auspicious dates. Armies would meet at agreed-upon places. The goal was to capture high-ranking enemies, especially enemy kings, to humiliate rival cities. But as resources became scarce during the drought, the nature of warfare changed. Wars became more desperate, more destructive. Cities weren't just raiding each other for captives, they were fighting for control of water sources, farmland, trade routes. These wars were existential, not ceremonial. Tikal and Calakmul, the two superpowers of the Maya world, fought a long series of wars. Other cities were dragged in as allies of one side or the other. The warfare was devastating. Villages were burned, fields were destroyed, trade networks collapsed. Resources that should have been used for feeding people were used for warfare instead. In 695 AD, Tikal defeated Calakmul in a major battle, capturing and sacrificing Calakmul's king. This should have been Tikal's moment of supreme triumph. Instead, it seems to have been one of the last great military victories of the Classic period. The cost of these wars, combined with the environmental stress, was too much. Both cities were weakened, not strengthened, by their conflicts. There's another factor: the political system itself. Maya kingship was based on divine right. The king was supposed to be semi-divine, able to communicate with the gods, able to ensure prosperity and success. When things went well, when harvests were good, when victories came in war, when the population was healthy and growing, this validated the king's power. The gods were pleased. The cosmic order was balanced. But when things went wrong, when drought came, when crops failed, when diseases spread, when wars were lost, what did that mean? It meant the king had failed in his sacred duty. He had lost the gods' favor. Maybe he wasn't really divine after all. Maybe the system itself was broken. We can see evidence of this crisis of faith in the archaeological record. The last dated monuments at many Maya cities show signs of struggle. Kings still erected stelae, still carved their names and achievements. But the monuments became smaller, less elaborate. The carving was less skilled. The dates became irregular, long gaps between monuments, suggesting instability. At some cities we see evidence of violence. The royal palaces were burned. Monuments were deliberately broken, especially monuments showing the king's face. This wasn't random vandalism. This was targeted destruction, erasing the king's image, denying his power. Probably this was done by the common people, rising up against kings they felt had failed them. For over 1,000 years, Maya society had been organized around the principle of divine kingship. Kings were the intermediaries between humans and gods. The whole system, the pyramids, the ceremonies, the calendar, the sacrifices, all of it was built on this foundation. When that foundation cracked, when people stopped believing in the king's divinity, the whole structure of Maya civilization was threatened. Without that central organizing principle, what held society together? Why should farmers give tribute if the king couldn't make it rain? Why should craftsmen work for jade jewelry when jade couldn't buy food? Why should anyone stay in the cities when the cities could no longer fulfill their functions? There were also ecological problems beyond the drought. The Maya had been farming the same land for centuries. Slash and burn agriculture works well if you have plenty of land. You farm a plot for a few years, then let it lie fallow for a decade or more while the forest regrows, while nutrients return to the soil. But with a large population and limited land, the Maya were shortening the fallow periods. They were farming the same land more frequently. The soil was becoming depleted, losing its fertility. Erosion was a problem. When you cut down trees on hillsides, the rain washes the soil away. The lakes and rivers were filling with silt. Some scientists believe deforestation itself may have affected the local climate, reducing rainfall. Trees put moisture into the air through evapotranspiration. Fewer trees might have meant less moisture, contributing to the drought conditions. And so, the cities emptied. Not all at once. Not in a single catastrophic collapse. It happened gradually, over decades, in waves. Some families left in 810, more left in 820. By 850, whole neighborhoods were abandoned. By 900, most of the great lowland cities were essentially empty. The last dated monument at Tikal was carved in 869 AD. After that, nothing. The city that had been the greatest power in the Maya world, that had stood for over 1,000 years, fell silent. Where did the people go? Some moved north into the Yucatan Peninsula, where cities like Chichen Itza and Uxmal flourished during what's called the post-classic period. These cities had slightly different environments. They had cenotes, natural sinkholes filled with water, which provided more reliable water sources during droughts. Some moved into the highlands of Guatemala, where Maya cities and towns continued to exist. Highland Maya were less affected by the lowland drought. Some probably moved to the coasts, and some probably died. Drought, famine, disease, warfare, all of these took their toll. The Maya population dropped significantly during the collapse. Estimates suggest the lowland population fell by 70 to 90% between 800 and 950 AD. Millions of people gone, dead, migrated, scattered. Let's walk through Tikal one last time, but now it's the year 1000 AD. The city is empty. No people live here anymore. The plaza, once white and gleaming, is covered with soil blown in by wind, with leaves fallen from trees. Grass grows where people once gathered by the thousands. The pyramids still stand. Stone is durable, and these structures were built to last. But they're weathering. The plaster is mostly gone, exposing the limestone blocks. Some blocks have fallen, leaving gaps. Water seeps in during the rainy season, and when it freezes on cold nights, the ice expands, cracking the stone, slowly destroying what took generations to build. The palace is a ruin. The roof combs have fallen. The corbelled arches are collapsing. Rooms that once housed kings and queens are now home to bats and snakes and insects. The walls, once covered with colorful murals showing history and mythology, are faded, water-stained, crumbling. Trees are growing everywhere. Seeds blown by wind or carried by birds have landed in cracks, in soil accumulated in corners. Roots are forcing their way between stones, gradually prying the structures apart. What humans built, nature is reclaiming. In another 100 years, Tikal will be almost invisible. The trees will be large, their canopy covering everything. From a distance, the pyramids will look like hills, natural features of the landscape, covered with vegetation. The city will be swallowed by the jungle, hidden, forgotten. The stelae, those stone monuments carved with the names and deeds of kings, are still standing in the plaza, but they're covered with moss and lichen. The glyphs are becoming harder to read as the stone erodes. The faces of kings stare blankly at the empty plaza, monuments to people no one remembers, to a civilization that has disappeared. The silence is profound. Where once there were thousands of voices, people talking, laughing, arguing, praying, now there are only jungle sounds, birds calling, howler monkeys roaring, the rustle of leaves in the wind, the patter of rain on stone. It's peaceful in a way. The jungle doesn't mourn. The jungle simply reclaims what was always its space, what was temporarily borrowed by humans. The trees grow over the pyramids, the vines cover the palaces, the forest floor spreads across the plazas. Given enough time, nature erases everything humans create. This pattern repeated across the Maya lowlands. Calakmul, Palenque, Copan, Caracol, Dos Pilas, Naranjo, Yaxchilan. Dozens of cities, all abandoned. The people left, and the jungle moved in. By 1500 AD, when Spanish conquistadors arrived in the Americas, these cities had been abandoned for 500 years or more. The jungle had hidden them so completely that the Spanish never knew they existed. For centuries after the collapse, people living in the region told stories about ancient cities in the jungle, about stone monuments and pyramids. But these stories were considered myths, exaggerations. Surely, people thought, there couldn't have been great cities here. The jungle was too dense, too inhospitable. It wasn't until the 1800s that explorers and archaeologists began to discover the ruins. John Lloyd Stephens and Frederick Catherwood traveled through Central America in the 1840s, finding city after city, drawing pictures, describing what they saw. Their books amazed the world. There had been a great civilization here. The stories were true. Since then, archaeologists have been slowly uncovering the Maya cities, clearing the jungle, excavating buildings, trying to understand what happened. The jungle grows fast. If you clear an area and come back a year later, it's already covered with vegetation again. But gradually, a picture has emerged. We understand now that the classic Maya collapse was a complex phenomenon with multiple causes. No single factor explains it. Instead, it was drought, plus warfare, plus environmental degradation, plus political crisis, plus probably other factors we don't fully understand yet. These factors reinforced each other, creating a spiral of decline that the Maya couldn't escape. It's important to understand that this wasn't the end of Maya civilization. The Maya people didn't disappear. They're still here. Millions of people in Guatemala, Belize, Mexico, Honduras, and El Salvador identify as Maya today. They speak Maya languages. There are over 30 different Maya languages still spoken. They maintain cultural traditions that go back centuries. What collapsed was a particular form of Maya civilization, the classic period city-states with their divine kings and massive pyramid temples. But Maya culture continued in different forms. The post-classic Maya built new cities. When the Spanish arrived in the 1500s, they encountered numerous Maya kingdoms, some quite powerful. The Spanish conquest took decades and met fierce resistance. Even after the Spanish conquest, Maya culture survived. In remote areas, Maya communities maintained their languages, traditions, beliefs. They blended traditional Maya spirituality with Catholicism, creating unique syncretic practices. They preserved knowledge through the few surviving codices, through oral tradition, through ceremonies, through daily practices passed down through families. Today, Maya archaeologists are helping to uncover and interpret their ancestors' cities. Maya linguists are working to preserve and revitalize Maya languages. Maya communities are reclaiming their heritage, teaching children about their history, fighting to protect ancient sites from looting and development. The cities are still there, many of them. Some, like Tikal and Palenque and Chichen Itza, have been extensively excavated and are tourist destinations. Thousands of people visit them every year, walking through plazas where Maya kings once performed ceremonies, climbing pyramids that were built over 1,000 years ago. But many more sites remain undiscovered, still hidden under the jungle canopy. With modern technology, satellite imaging, LIDAR scanning that can see through jungle, archaeologists are finding hundreds of new sites. In 2018, a LIDAR survey revealed over 60,000 previously unknown structures. The scope of Maya civilization was even greater than we realized. As night falls over the abandoned city, as darkness covers the ruined pyramids and empty plazas, the stars come out. The same stars Maya astronomers once watched so carefully. The same constellations, following the same paths across the sky. Venus hangs in the west, brilliant as ever, indifferent to the fact that no Maya priest is tracking its movements. The cosmos continues. The planets move in their orbits. The moon goes through its phases. The sun rises and sets. All the patterns the Maya studied so intensely, all the cycles they tracked so carefully, they go on regardless of whether anyone is watching. And perhaps that's the ultimate lesson of the Maya collapse. Civilizations are fragile. They depend on delicate balances, environmental, political, social, economic. When those balances are disrupted, when the system is stressed beyond its capacity to adapt, collapse can happen. Not quickly, usually, not in a single dramatic moment, but slowly, gradually, a thread at a time, until suddenly there's nothing holding it together anymore. The Maya built a magnificent civilization. They created cities that rivaled anything in the ancient world. They developed sophisticated mathematics, astronomy, and writing. They created art of breathtaking beauty. They lasted for thousands of years. And then, for reasons they probably didn't fully understand themselves, their world fell apart. The cities emptied. The pyramids crumbled. The jungle returned. But the knowledge remained. The stories remained. The people remained. Changed, adapted, continuing in new forms, but remaining. Because civilizations may collapse, but culture endures. People endure. Memory endures. The jungle grows over the pyramids, but the pyramids are still there, under the trees, waiting. The glyphs on the monuments are weathered, but they can still be read, the ancient kings still speaking across the centuries. The calendar the Maya created is still mathematically perfect, still calculating time, whether anyone is using it or not. Nothing is truly lost. Nothing is truly gone. It's just sleeping, dreaming under the jungle canopy, waiting to be remembered, waiting to teach us what it knew, waiting to show us what humans can achieve and what humans can lose, and how, even in loss, something essential remains, something that can never be completely erased by time or trees or silence. The night deepens, the stars continue their dance, and somewhere in the darkness, in the ruins of a great civilization, the past and present and future exist together all at once, eternal, waiting, dreaming. The dream continues. The morning sun rises over the jungle once again, just as it has for thousands of years. Mist clings to the treetops. Birds begin their songs. In the ruins of Tikal, in Palenque, in Copan, in dozens of ancient Maya cities, light slowly touches the weathered stones of pyramids that still stand, patient and silent. We've traveled together through 3,000 years of Maya history, from small farming villages to mighty cities, from the first stone platforms to pyramids reaching toward the clouds, from simple counting systems to sophisticated mathematics that included the concept of zero, from oral traditions to beautiful writing carved in stone and painted in books. We've walked through markets full of color and life. We've climbed pyramids with priests and kings. We've watched ceremonies where humans and gods came together. We've seen the daily rhythm of ordinary families, grinding corn, weaving cloth, raising children, passing down knowledge from generation to generation. And we've witnessed the slow unraveling, the mysterious collapse, when the cities emptied and the jungle returned, covering everything in green silence. But remember this: the Maya people never disappeared. They're still here. Right now, in villages and cities across Guatemala, Mexico, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador, Maya people are living their lives. Mothers are grinding corn on stone metates, using the same technique their ancestors used 3,000 years ago. Weavers are creating beautiful cloth on backstrap looms, patterns that have been passed down through countless generations. Farmers are planting corn, beans, and squash, the same three sisters that fed the ancient Maya. Children are learning Maya languages: Quiche, Yucatec, Quechua, Mam, and over 30 others. These languages carry within them the worldview of the ancient Maya, the same words and concepts that scribes painted in codices, that kings spoke in ceremonies, that grandmothers whispered to children in the darkness. The ancient calendar is still used in some Maya communities. Daykeepers, spiritual guides, still count the days of the Tzolk'in, still determine auspicious dates for planting, for ceremonies, for important life events. The ancient knowledge continues, adapted, changed, but unbroken. Archaeologists continue to uncover the secrets of the ancient cities. New discoveries happen every year. Just recently they found new pyramids, new inscriptions, new insights into how the Maya lived and thought. There's so much still to learn, so many sites still hidden under the jungle, so many glyphs still waiting to be read. Museums around the world display Maya art, the intricately painted pottery, the delicate jade carvings, the imposing stone monuments. People stand before these objects, amazed at their beauty, trying to connect with the people who created them centuries ago. And every day, thousands of visitors walk through the ruins of the great Maya cities. They climb the pyramids, carefully, using wooden stairs built for tourists, not those steep, ancient steps. They stand at the top and look out over the jungle, imagining what it must have been like when these plazas were full of people, when the buildings were covered in bright paint, when smoke rose from temple doorways and music filled the air. The Maya civilization achieved something remarkable. They built a sophisticated culture in one of the most challenging environments on Earth: dense tropical jungle with thin soil, unpredictable rainfall, no navigable rivers, no large domesticated animals to help with labor. They did it with stone tools, with human muscle, with brilliant minds and endless determination. They showed us that civilization can take many forms. You don't need metal tools or written records in our style, or cities built in our pattern to create something magnificent. The Maya did it their way, and their way was extraordinary. They gave us mathematics, astronomy, and writing. They gave us art of stunning beauty. They gave us architecture that still inspires awe. They gave us a different way of thinking about time, about the relationship between humans and the divine, about what it means to build something that will last beyond your lifetime. And perhaps most importantly, they showed us that civilizations are not eternal. Even the mightiest cities can fall. Even the most sophisticated cultures can collapse. But people endure. Culture endures. Knowledge, adapted and transformed, continues. As you drift towards sleep now, think about those ancient farmers, waking before dawn to grind corn. Think about the scribes, carefully painting glyphs by torchlight. Think about the kings in their jade jewelry, climbing pyramids to speak with the gods. Think about the children playing in the plazas, the merchants in the markets, the dancers at festivals, the families sitting together at evening, telling stories. Think about the pyramids, still standing after more than 1,000 years, covered in jungle now, but eternal in their own way. Think about the glyphs carved in stone, still speaking the names of kings, still recording dates that happened centuries ago. Think about the calendar, still turning, still counting, still tracking the movement of time. The ancient Maya are not gone. They're sleeping in the stones. They're whispering in the wind through the ruins. They're present in the faces of their descendants. They're alive in the stories, the languages, the traditions that continue. And they're here with you now, in this moment, as you close your eyes and let your breathing slow. The same stars they watched are above you. The same moon that illuminated their pyramids shines in your sky. The same human questions they asked, about meaning, about beauty, about how to live a good life, about what we leave behind. These are your questions too. Rest now. Let the story of the Maya settle into your dreams. See the pyramids rising from the jungle. Hear the drums and flutes. Smell the copal incense. Feel the tropical rain, warm and heavy. Watch the stars wheel across the dark sky, tracking the same paths they've always followed. The Maya understood something profound. They knew that time is cyclical, that endings are also beginnings, that what falls can rise again, that nothing is ever truly lost. So sleep peacefully, dream of ancient cities and jungle ruins, dream of jade and feathers, of corn and chocolate, of pyramids touching clouds. Dream of a civilization that built wonders, that lasted for millennia, that collapsed and yet somehow never ended. The Maya are still here. Their story continues. And you, having listened to their tale, having walked through their cities in your imagination, having learned their achievements and witnessed their struggles, you carry a piece of them with you now. May your dreams be filled with the wisdom of ancient astronomers, the creativity of Maya artists, the determination of pyramid builders, the daily grace of ordinary people living extraordinary lives. Rest well. The jungle grows. The pyramids stand. The stars continue their dance. And the story of the Maya, like all great stories, never truly ends. Good night. The end.